Speaking out of Akron, Ohio, representing Team Popping the Boys, the headline god, Jeremy Lambert, and his co-host, speaking out of Atlanta, Georgia, representing more than one royal family, the king of indie viewing, Stephen Jensen. And this is the Spotlight on Fightful.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Spotlight here on Fightful. I'm Jeremy Lambert. That is Stephen Jensen, and shout out to Big Dick MLJ for the intro. As always, it is Thursday, September 28th. Jensen, what Cody shirt are you wearing this morning?
Wearing a
that's a classic.
Make them say
That's a classic. Yeah. I respect that one. I was gonna buy that one ahead of WrestleMania because I was so certain that he was gonna win at WrestleMania.
Me too.
And then after WrestleMania, I was gonna probably buy it, but then he lost, and so I didn't want to support a loser. So
yeah, we're gonna talk about Cody on today's show, everybody. Don't worry about that.
That's actually my spotlight.
It is. You chose that one.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to talk about Jade, obviously. That's
Yes.
the big one, of course, for WWE. But yeah, I'm doing good though today, Jeremy. Getting ready for a good show here. We got a good interview with Jon Alba for y'all later today as well. And yeah, I don't care about the football game tonight. It's like the Packers and someone. I can't remember who it is, but yeah, everything's good, man. How you doing?
I was trying to think who it was, and I don't remember. Our teams play this weekend.
This Sunday.
Yeah, a very worthy 0-3 showdown.
Yeah, dude, I'm worried though, honestly, because like I think Adam Thielen's gonna go off on us. Like he had a really good game last week, and I love Adam Thielen. Like, and it's he's like legitimately, excuse me, he's legitimately like my favorite football player of all time. But Thielen, it's so frustrating, and this is all the football talk we'll do. I promise we'll get into the wrestling, but the Vikings have had problems with like KJ Osborne and TJ Hawkinson and some of their guys holding on to the football. Alexander Madison, the running back, people just not holding on to the football. And Thielen, the one thing you're going to get out of him 100% is he holds on to the football. Like he catches, like if it's near him, he will catch it. The only problem with him was he was getting slower and older, but I would give anything to have him in a lot of these situations that we needed him this season. Like he would have been a much better option than like KJ's dropped a lot of really key passes and stuff, and Hawkinson keeps coughing the ball up. Like, anyway, I'm expecting. I'm going to be playing Adam Thielen on my fantasy roster against my Vikings. I like never do that, but I'm going to make the exception for Thielen because I'm a Thielen guy, and because they're both 0-3, and I think Thielen's going to have a massive like revenge game. So yeah, but I'm looking forward to the game though. Like it's two teams that like, if for no other reason they're playing so that people don't start getting fired probably. So
do we want to make a bet?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What are we betting?
Does Chad have any good ideas? I don't know. I'm definitely down though.
What's the spread?
Oh, I don't know. We have to do on the spread. We can just do like winner loser.
We got two
0-3 teams. There's no through the spread.
I assume it's a 3-point favorite. Whoever, I don't even know who's playing at home, but I assume whoever is playing at home is the 3-point favorite.
Yeah, I honestly don't even know who's at home, which is the double check. I mean, honestly, it doesn't even matter. Like Minnesota lost at home last week on the last play of the game because they didn't just go up and spike the damn ball with like. There was like 40 seconds left in the game. We get a 1st and goal and no timeouts. And Kirk Cousins, who I love Kirk, but it gets real scary when you see that dude out there doing this thing where he's got his hands over his ears for the helmet. He's going,
yeah,
because he can't hear anything and he doesn't know what to do and he's afraid to call a timeout and like, or he doesn't know just to go spike the ball. It was insane. Anyways, where's the game at?
It's in Carolina. The Vikings are actually 4-point favorites. So that means if they were in Minnesota, they'd be a touchdown favorite because the home team always gets a -3.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm cool with going whatever bet you guys want to go on. I think it's an even
I think
matchup,
so too.
I think, so
the Vegas clearly, the Panthers suck. They've shown me nothing in the first 3 weeks that makes me believe they're going to win any football game like all season. Yeah, it's not a good team. And so now, 2-0-3 teams. I'll go money line. That's completely fine. But what should we put up here, everybody? We obviously a show bit, something we can do like on the air to have fun with everything. If you find a costume of the other team, the mascot, and do a show in, that's gonna cost me.
I'll do an episode in an LA Knight shirt if I lose. How about that?
Wow. Okay.
Or CM Punk shirt, whatever one you guys want. I'll do a whole episode in either a CM Punk shirt or an LA Knight shirt.
All right. I need
That's
something
pretty good.
then, because I feel I'm going to lose this. So
edge regalia, like a. I'm trying to think of who you don't like. Like you got this.
I don't actually dislike anybody that's not like a bit type of thing. I don't have a disdain for really anyone.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't really have a disdain for anyone either. I don't want to make it sound like I hate these guys that much. Listen, the LA Knight thing is purely on screen. I don't get it. The CM Punk stuff is a little deeper. But...
Yeah. The LA Knight shirt is definitely like a character thing. Yeah, the CM Punk stuff is a little bit more, it feels.
Yeah.
People say one chip challenge. Didn't someone just die from that?
It's a pretty good bet. There's a lot on the line there if that's the case. But I don't know if that's true or not. Like I've seen a million people do that challenge. I feel like if something happened to someone doing that challenge, I don't want to I'm honestly not trying to make fun of anybody if that actually happened. But there must have been something up with like their system to where like they couldn't handle that spice or whatever. Because like I said, I've seen hundreds of people do that challenge on YouTube. Hundreds.
Teen's death leads to outpouring of concern over spicy chip challenge as sales are halted.
Oh, okay. Never mind. So... I'll take it back. Wow. That's been around for years, that thing. I've seen so many people do that thing.
I know plenty of people have done it. Yeah, I've seen all the videos as well. And like maybe it was something, and this was a 12-year-old. So, 12-year-olds probably shouldn't be doing that. They are not quite developed like we are.
Yeah, sorry about that, y'all. I legitimately thought that someone was kidding in the chat when y'all because I've seen so many people do that challenge. That's terrible that happened to somebody. Like, but I'd imagine. I don't know, and I don't want to speak on this too much. But is there a disclaimer on that thing? Like you're supposed to be a certain age to do it, or like
I don't know
like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently, it's been pulled anyway after this, so like I'm not even sure we could do it. Because
let's not do that. Let's not talk. Yeah, rest in peace. I mean, honestly, that's absolutely awful. Like, because that's different than like those like Tide Pod BS challenges and stuff that were like obviously nobody should have been doing. But like
that
challenge, I've seen hundreds of people do that. That's why I was joking about it because I watch so many. Y'all know me. I watch a ton of the food challenges on YouTube. I watch it all the time. So I've seen hundreds of people do that chip challenge, and it honestly didn't even seem that bad. Like I think I could do it without much problem, to be completely honest. I've seen people who can't even take spice do it. So yeah, we're not. So anyway, we'll figure out a different challenge. And I want to once again say, like, if somebody actually did pass away from that, I'm very, very sorry. That's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, it was a teen. It was literally just a couple. It wasn't too long ago, and I only know about this because on In the Weeds we were trying to figure out a bit to do because we got enough money, and it was the cake bit where I ended up just smashing cake all over my face, and I brought up the one chip challenge. Like, yeah, I'm willing to do that. That doesn't seem too terrible. And the wife told me, like, yeah, somebody actually just died from this, so I don't know about that. I was like, okay, well, yeah, let's not do that then.
Yeah, we won't do that. We'll think of a different one. I like the LA Knight t-shirt thing because y'all know all the jokes we've been doing about that and my kind of like heat with him or whatever. So that'd be kind of funny. We can figure out something for Jeremy. I don't want anyone to get injured. This is all just for fun. So, they're saying Sami did the challenge on their vlog. I know I've seen.
Oh yeah, plenty of people have done it. This isn't. Yeah, this isn't a thing of like.
Yeah.
It hasn't been done before and done safely and everything. Like it's been done, but it's literally just weeks ago somebody died from this. So
we'll figure out a challenge. We'll figure out something. But by the end of the show, some people in the chat let us know throughout the show. We will make an official bet at the end of the show for the football game this Sunday.
Yeah. Well, I'll bring it up again later on. So if you guys have a bet, somebody did say I did like this one. Where's it at? Cyclops better than Wolverine. Do a whole show in character of a wrestler and the winner.
That'd be tough. I don't know if that'd be honestly even entertaining for y'all. That might just be like really cringe. I don't know.
Imagine you just saying yeah after everything.
That actually might be kind of funny. I don't know. Maybe for like one of the topics. Maybe for like the WWE topic, I would do it for like, I don't know. Yeah, that's a pretty good bet though.
We'll figure something out. We'll bring it to the Twitterverse as well and put it out there. See if anybody has some suggestions as well. An hour and a half of Lambs. I cannot keep that voice for an hour and a half. That is a tough ass voice to do for that long. Hurts my throat.
I feel really bad about that kid. Like so many kids must have done that challenge. You know what I mean? How many people saw it? Man, that bummed me out. Like that sucks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it isn't your fault at all. Like I feel bad that like that actually happened. I legitimately thought that was a joke when somebody put that in the chat. I was like, oh yeah, someone died from the chip challenge. It's like, oh my God. Like, yeah. Damn. Okay, anyway, let's talk about wrestling.
And now we're going to talk about wrestling, everybody. All right, here we go.
I need to finish the story. In the WWE, the story never finishes.
Jade Cargill is officially in WWE to try to finish her story. That's what it's going to be. You know, Link is all elite graphic. We need WWE to do the blank is finishing the story. That's what we need. Jade Cargill officially signed with WWE on Tuesday. They made the announcement, multi-year deal. We talked a little bit about it 2 weeks ago now. At this point, when Sean broke the news late Wednesday night that Jade was finishing up with AEW, seemingly headed to WWE, and now it is official. Multi-year deal started at the Performance Center. We do not know what brand she will be on. She apparently knows which brand she will be on, and she is coming to either NXT or the main roster at some point. Jensen, overall thoughts on Jade joining WWE and what you would do with her?
Man, well, I mean, I love that she's joining WWE. I've been saying actually for a while, like, and even like weeks leading up to this, I was saying that, I think that she'd be a really good fit there. She still has a lot to learn, but on just like the looks, presentation, and like being able to do what she has learned in AEW up to this point, like she can get by. Like, I don't even want to say get by because that sounds like she isn't talented. Because I love Jade. I've been a Jade fan pretty much since day one of like seeing how she did in that Shaq match, and then seeing like the progression and just knowing she got thrown swim with the Sharks, like on national television, learn on the job. Every match she's ever had, we've seen. It's like, so I have a ton of respect for Jade Cargill for thriving in that position where it was a real sink or swim scenario. But if she wants to be the biggest, like superstar, like legitimate star, mainstream star, all that kind of stuff, WWE is the place to be for that. And with her look, I've said it 1,000 times because I've said it. She lives in my area and I've seen her in person before. You see her out in public, there's a star in your presence. Like she looks like a star. She carries herself like a star. When she's at Hawks games, they put her on the big screen, like, and all this stuff. And in the WWE, that's only going to be amplified even more. Like she's gonna be treated like a star. I feel. I think they're gonna really push her, and I think it's smart how they're introducing her because this is different than like someone like a Cody Rhodes returning or like Drew McIntyre returning or something like that. Where like the WWE universe has like seen them and like it's a big return. So like if like, for instance, if Jade just like debuted on Raw or SmackDown or NXT or something as like a run-in or at the end of a show or whatever, there's a good portion of the audience probably that wouldn't know her just because there's a good portion of the audience in the WWE that only watches the WWE. But because they're doing this big signing for her and all this like media and press around it, they're making it seem like this big, free agent has been signed. So even if you don't know who she is or watch WWE, you're seeing her and you're like, she looks like a star. And you're seeing videos of like, wow, they got video of her coming into the Performance Center. They've got articles on her already. She's already doing interviews and all this stuff. And there's speculation about which brand she's going to be on. So automatically, even if you're a casual WWE viewer that doesn't even watch AEW or know who Jade Cargill is, you're probably already heavily invested in like, who is this? And you're seeing like the women going back and forth, like her and Becky and Bayley and like the top women in the company are like tweeting about her and stuff like that. So it's making it really feel like they have got a new star coming into the company that they have never seen before. And if you have seen her before, like we have, it's exciting because you've seen what she could do in AEW. Were all of her matches great? No. But did she have some really great stuff? I think so. And especially for somebody who had only had less than 40 matches in her entire career, and to have like even half of them be pretty damn good considering the circumstances. And she's never done this before. Like that's, and she's having to main event shows sometimes. She's having to do like pay-per-view spots or like big, so it's one of those things where like, I think Jade, I think she's ready from like a mindset perspective. And I think that she's going to learn whatever she needs to in the performance center as far as like, because she's already worked on TV. So she already knows the cameras and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of like fine tuning kind of what they want out of her on the show for her presentation and what they want her to do in the ring. I would honestly have her, like, I would fly out Kevin Nash to the performance center and have him work with Jade. Like, just like work like, look at how they did kind of like with Braun and stuff, like work like a strong woman, like move a little slower, be powerful, your presence, you can take time to do stuff, like let people soak in the superstar that is Jade Cargill in between everything you're doing. I'd have Nash like teach her to be really methodical out there. And as far as brands, I mean, I would honestly put her on Raw or SmackDown right away, unless they want to have her like do like a one big like NXT like story or something beforehand. But I'd strike while the iron's hot. I'd put her on Raw or SmackDown. And we've already learned that she can swim in a sink or swim scenario. And there's obviously a lot of dream matches for her in the WWE against like all the top women. Charlotte's really the main one. And I think that I've said it 1,000 times. I think Camille will eventually sign with the WWE. And I'd love to see that one day. Camille versus Jade. Two people had similar kind of come ups in their companies. So that's how I feel about it. I'm excited for it. I think it's good for Jade. And it's probably good for AEW, honestly, too, because like, I don't know if that was the best pairing going forward with like after Jade's run with the TBS title, if they wanted her in that mix or felt that she was good for the mix for the main title. I mean, the timing just might have been perfect. And she has Cody in the WWE, like to help her out. And that was obviously a big link to get her there. So I think it all just makes sense.
She mentioned that Cody was a factor in her decision. I don't know how many conversations they had. I imagine they had a few, but she did say that like that was a factor. Cody coming, seeing, I assume, his success, not only seeing the success, but like Cody picked certain people in AEW, right? And he picked people that were not necessarily the indie darling work rate people that the Young Bucks may have attached to, or that got over really on the indies. Ricky Starks was a name in NWA, but was not the big indie darling that you heard about throughout. Jade, no one had heard of her when he was picked. Cody kind of picked superstar people. And that is what Jade has always come off as. She has come off as a superstar in AEW. AEW might not have been the platform to make the most of that superstardom because let's just be honest about things. AEW is the second company. Like they do not have the global outreach that WWE has. They do not have the global platform, even the over-the-top budget and production and just mainstream attention. Even though AEW gets some, it's nothing compared to what WWE gets. It's just not. And Jade has always seemingly fit that world a little bit better. And the other reason why it might not have been the best fit in the world is Jade was so new. And AEW is so positioned as the work rate company. Right? Like they want to go out there, they want to have longer matches, they want to do high paced kind of stuff, like just heavy work rate stuff. Jade doesn't need to do all of that, and I don't even think was ready to do all of that. When she was put in that position, she works just overall a more WWE style. Honestly, like she works a kind of a slower, more methodical style, and because she is bigger, she doesn't have to do as much of that kind of stuff. She picked it up a little bit at the end. I know a lot of people really loved Sky Blue. I think it was the transition into the Jaded on that one time where she just powerhoused her all around. People loved that. And like, she was definitely coming along and improving, but she did not need to she didn't need to work that style. I don't think she's ready to work that style. WWE, it's going to be less of an issue. They have a style that is a little bit more suited to her. And then they have just the overall platform that is more suited to her look. And I don't think AEW failed in this regard, by the way. AEW tried to do as much positive as they could in putting her out in front of media. She did a lot of interviews. She was on as many shows as they could get her on. Again, it goes back to a reach thing. AEW does not have the reach to put people on Good Morning America or ESPN College Game Day or First Take or whatever. You just don't see that with AEW, where in WWE, you see it all the time, that kind of stuff. And so I imagine Jade will be in that position with WWE, and they're treating her as such. I mean, ESPN broke the story that she was doing interviews with ESPN. She's doing interviews with The Ringer, which is, I don't think they're now affiliated with ESPN anymore, but that's still a big time sports website. Like, she's doing all of these interviews, and they're giving her the red carpet treatment with everything. I think it's a great fit. As far as the brand, I know there's been some speculation of NXT Breakout Tournament. That's the brackets are supposed to be announced on Saturday. We'll see. My idea for this is she wins the Breakout Tournament. She faces Becky Lynch on the October 10th episode of NXT for the women's title. She wins the NXT women's title. Cody Rhodes defeats Dominic Mysterio for the NXT North American title on that same night. You close the October 10th episode of NXT, Cody and Jade holding the titles. Because do you know why that's the closing shot of that particular episode of Steve Jensen?
Go ahead and tell me.
AEW is running that Tuesday night. That's
are they?
AEW versus NXT Tuesday night.
Oh my gosh, I didn't put that together. That's so fun. Wait, so are they running Dynamite on Tuesday instead?
They're running Dynamite on Tuesday.
Oh man, what bumped it?
I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not sure, honestly.
Because NBA is not back. They're preseason.
Maybe NHL. Maybe it might be opening night NHL.
Gotcha. Damn. Okay. Well, that's funny. That'd be funny if they put AEW, former AEW talent on NXT right up against. That'd be Triple H coming back and saying, "See, I told you it was about the long term. It was about the long term war. I told you guys the whole time."
Jade and Cody closing that show. Titles above their head.
Hate that idea. I love the idea of Jade. I like the idea of Jade beating Becky maybe for that, because that's part of this too. That might be a tie-in that I haven't really considered much, that other fans I'm sure probably heavily considered, is why is Becky Lynch even involved in NXT and the NXT Women's Champion? And then when you think about it like that, it's oh yeah, it would actually make sense though if she's doing that short term specifically to put over Jade when Jade comes in. And if that's the case, that makes a lot of sense, because then you can parlay that into a main roster story between Becky and Jade too pretty fast if you wanted to, and get Jade on the main roster. So yeah, I don't think Cody's going to be winning the North American Championship on NXT. So I missed the match though. Was Dominic versus Dragon Lee good?
Yeah, it was good. I think it did a big number as well. I do want to address this right fast. Yeah, baseball is probably a more correct answer.
Good call. Yeah. TBS baseball. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. The match was good, and Dominic's gonna face Trick Williams this weekend. Now Dragon Lee's gonna be the special guest ref. He feels a little biased. He kind of attacked Dominic on Tuesday. I feel like that's poor management to put him as the special ref. Yeah, Dragon Lee's great, and Dominic was able. Dominic's good in spots, right? I like Dominic as a character. His ring work kind of is what it is. But the Seth match proved that if he's in there with a high class worker, and that was Dominic's first match, it proved if he's in there with a certain type of worker, Dominic will be fine in those spots. And he was good against Dragon Lee.
Good. That kind of transitions into our other spotlight. But did you want to talk any more about Jade? There's not a whole lot more I can really add to it at the moment, because we're waiting to see what she does when she debuts. But I think I can't say it enough. I'm very happy for her, and I think she's going to be very successful there. And she's not the only one that's going to be making a move like this. You mentioned Ricky Starks. There's other people on the AEW roster that, when time comes up with their contracts, or time comes to start renegotiating or extensions and that kind of stuff, there's going to be more people that come from AEW to WWE and vice versa. There's going to be people that go back and forth. And I said this like a while ago. I mean, years ago. Yeah, I was saying the funny thing about the way that WWE is booking their future is they put all their eggs in the Roman Reigns basket. And this is before Cody even came back to WWE. I was saying, like, at some point, because of the trajectory, if like Cena's gone and it's just Roman and like Orton's getting older and he's gone, and, like Batista's probably not coming back and all this stuff. And this was, once again, this is years ago, me saying this. And I'm thinking like, and like Danielson maybe had just left, and like the pandemic and Adam Cole and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there going, the future of the WWE is probably currently in AEW. I was saying that for a while. I was like, there's and then like Cody wound up going back, and it's like, okay, well that makes sense though because of his past. But I was like now there's a link there for people that come from AEW to WWE that are Cody's people that he feels like would be a good fit there that WWE would want. And now Jade's the first example of that. And I do think there's going to be more people that make that move. I mean, and the other thing is too, I'd recommend if y'all can go back and watch. Some of these things haven't aged great depending on the interview and the interviewer. But growing up over the years, I watched even, and I would say growing up, even just like a few years ago and stuff, I watched a ton of those like shoot interviews for like all the different websites. And if you go back and you listen to old shoot interviews that guys like MJF did, guys like Ricky Starks did and stuff, and this is obviously before AEW even existed, but they're all talking about doing extra work for WWE, their main goal being WWE, being fans of WWE their whole lives and all this stuff. And I get that AEW is awesome and it's great, and there's going to be plenty of people that want to stay there forever. And AEW is personally my choice of the two as far as like a fan to watch the product. But there's going to be a lot of people that now have an opportunity where it's like, and they can skip the line in a lot of ways too, because AEW has given them the platform to learn to wrestle on television in front of a mainstream audience, on national television, on, you know, with the camera work and all that stuff. So they're already prepared and already stars in Vince's mind. They're stars he doesn't have to build. You can look at that and be like, okay, Jade's already got a following. She's got a fan base. She's already good at what she needs to do. We can plug her right in. You could look at a guy like Ricky Starks and probably say the same thing. They could look at a guy like MJF, and a guy like MJF could be the main face of the WWE. Like he could be their, I literally think he could be the champion of the WWE for decades. Like he could be their main guy for a very long time if he came over. But so it's just one of those things where I think that Jade is the first example of this. And I think that we'll see more of that, especially if there are people that haven't appeared in the WWE previously. We'll see more of the signings along with like kind of the red carpet treatment and introduction to the WWE universe. But if there are people that we've seen in WWE previously that are coming back, I think it'll be more of like a surprise thing where you'll see them like pop up on a show because Vince and Triple H and them would expect the audience to already know who they were.
I love the jumping back and forth. Fans get weird about it. I'm not worried about them. Please,
Sure.
if you're one of those people, please just don't do that. I like to think our viewership and our audience is very smart and is not those people but I'm sure they see it online. Like they get very super territorial about this stuff. And it's, if you want to treat it like a sports team, that's okay. I think as long as you don't go overboard. If you are an AEW fan and you're like disappointed that she left and went to WWE, it's like, oh man, that sucks. Like I looked forward to watching her on AEW. Don't really watch WWE. Okay, fine. Don't be weird and with death threats and things like that, or whatever you might be doing. But I like the jumping back and forth though, because it does keep things fresh. I mean, we grew up in the era where it happened a lot. Like, how cool was it when Luger showed up, when Nash showed up, when Hall showed up, when Waltman showed up? And this is, in WWE.
When Waltman would go back and forth. Like,
yeah,
you didn't know what show he's going to be on.
Like, that was cool. It's a good opportunity for the wrestlers. And again, it does keep things fresh. And you got to also remember that, like, when someone jumps from one company to the other, yeah, it benefits the company that they're going to. It can benefit other people that the company they're leaving as well, because now, okay, the TBS title, Jade had a stranglehold on that thing for a year and people complained about it, the booking and everything. All right, well, now Chris Statlander's the champion. Now somebody else steps up and takes Jade's spot there. Cody Rhodes leaves. Who steps up and tries to fill the hole that Cody left? Like, there are now gaps to fill in those spots, and who's going to step up and take those spots? Like, it creates more opportunities for people in the company that they're leaving as well. Like, I think it's a good thing when this kind of stuff happens. And if you do want to look at it like real sports, we just had a big trade in the NBA, Damian Lillard going to the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, this is fun for an NBA fan like me. The Bucks look boring coming into the season. It's like, oh, wait a second. They're trading for Damian Lillard now? This is interesting. I like this. I like when teams, unless it's, if my team loses the player, right, I'm a little upset by that. I'm not weird about it. I'm just upset about it. I'm fucking rant. But like,
it's a bummer, dude. Like, y'all have my favorite player sitting there. I'm feeling the Viking for 10 years. Grew up right across the street from the field in Minnesota. Went to Minnesota State Mankato for college. Was a walk-on. All this stuff. And like, to see him leave sucks. But I still love Adam Thielen. I'm not like, you know what I mean? It wasn't a good fit for the team anymore. Wasn't a good fit for him anymore, and he moved on. And that's what happens in wrestling too. Just like every other job, if you weren't happy where you were, or something was better, you had another opportunity somewhere else. Like, you know what I mean? Would you want people hating you just because like you found another job in a similar company that worked better for you and for everybody?
Look at the support Jade has gotten from, her former coworkers, I guess. Ricky, Sean Dean, Nyla, like a lot of people have come out and just been like, hey, Jade's great. We wish Jade the best. Like, this is awesome. This is awesome for her. This is just a great opportunity for her. And Jade has even said nice things about this. She's like, I'm going to miss those people. I'm going to miss the bonds, the friendships that I've formed over there. Nobody's mad.
No, TK is being professional about it too. TK was like, yeah, we had a great relationship with Jade. Like, she's moving on. All luck to her. I'm sure he's not happy that he's losing her, but like, I mean, what better scenario than like this all happening and no bridges being burnt? Like, it's totally wide open to where like if things don't work out, or Jade, because that's the other thing too. We're thinking so short, or I shouldn't say anyone who gets upset about this kind of stuff is thinking so short term. Like, that doesn't mean that down the road Jade doesn't come back to AEW, or down the road Cody doesn't come back to AEW, or like things don't keep changing and stuff. You never know with, right? I mean, you never know. I never in a million years thought Cody would go back to the WWE after AEW started. And here we are. And it's a better fit for him in the WWE right now. It just is. So, just like you said, when spots open up in AEW and people leave, they're also filling gaps that are needed in the WWE. Like, I know somebody mentioned in the chat the women carrying during the pandemic. I agree with that too. I think the WWE has the best overall roster of women. If you look at like all their brands combined, I think they have a super, super, super talented roster of women that are all massive, like legitimate superstars. But you also need your next Roman Reigns or John Cena, and like Cody actually could be that. Like, you need more women to plug in here, because like there's only so many times we can see like the 4 horsewomen in some combination with one another or whatever. They do a good job though of like mixing in new women. Like I love Io Sky, and like there's a lot of women that I think are really talented in WWE, but like it definitely doesn't hurt to have Jade Cargill involved, because if it works out well, you have a new legit, because you could put a poster of like Jade and Charlotte like on like a WrestleMania poster and be like, this is the main event, and like a casual viewer would be like, ooh, okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, in the hardcore audience too, like myself, I'd be psyched for something like that. Like, I want to see it. So this is all good things, people. Like, and no company is really getting hurt by any of this. I really don't feel like anyone's getting hurt. I think this is I think all this is a benefit to everybody.
Where's Weishobel says losing top prospects, talent you thought would be franchise players sucks. You just got to wish them luck and move on. Yeah, like again, if you treat it like a sports team, that just remember that these teams and these players don't actually know who you are. Like they don't. So just root for them, support them. Don't be weird about it, because they probably do not care. Like they do not care. They're living their life. Their life does not affect you. Jade Cargill going to WWE does not actually affect you. It just doesn't. It doesn't.
It's going to affect you positively if you're a WWE fan, and it's going to affect you positively probably if you're an AEW fan. Because honestly, like you said before, in AEW, her run with the TBS title was awesome, and it was perfect for what it needed to be. But when she loses, do you just go on another like Goldberg-esque run at the main women's title, or does she become just kind of someone else? Or the big fear, like you just mentioned earlier, is can she hang in like the work rate scenarios that when you're on a pay-per-view and it's a 10-match pay-per-view and all around you is Danielson and Omega and Moxley and the Young Bucks and Hangman and all, and they're going out there and having these super indie classics on the main stage, and you come out there and you're doing like 4-minute WWE style matches. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it is different, and that would probably just be better suited to happen on WWE programming, like that specific style and match. And once again, if I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't believe it. Y'all know me. If I don't like something, I'll tell y'all. This is no cap, as the kids would say. I think like this is the best scenario for Jade being in the WWE. And if you're an AEW fan, look at what you have coming up. Like, for no other reason, just pay attention to Billy Starks. Just pay attention. She's going to be the biggest star in wrestling. You got that right there in AEW. Just wait. You know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of good in AEW. Like, I don't think AEW is going to be hurting the Jade leaving, and I think WWE is going to benefit from it. So, like, this is good stuff. I am a Jade Cargill supporter, so I want to see her succeed wherever she's at.
I look forward to seeing what she does in WWE, not only on television, but as someone who pays a lot of attention to media and things like that, and has to cover a lot of that. I look forward to seeing like what she does there. I think it'll be really good. All right, my WWE spotlight.
Sorry, before you transition, Jeremy, I got a really quick thing. Someone just messaged me from at Cole Radrick. It says, "Yell at Jeremy for me." You got something going on with Cole that needs to be addressed real quick. I don't know if he's watching right now.
I don't know. Probably just, I guess. Cole's always mad at me about something.
Well, shout out Cole Radrick, Ratty Daddy. I don't know. He just messaged me saying, "Yell at Jeremy for me." So
I wrote a very nice article about him.
It's me yelling at you.
I wrote like a very nice article about him. He wants the PWI Cat Dad of the Year back. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, shout out Ratty Daddy. Let's move on to the next topic.
All right.
I saw that he actually met Pat McAfee right after you and Brannigan joked about that.
Yeah.
Like 2 days later, he met Pat McAfee, which is so funny.
My WWE spotlight is Cody Rhodes, and it is Cody Rhodes potentially in a WarGames match. Finally, it's still 2 months away, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but we seem to be setting up Judgment Day, Priest, Dom, JD, Finn against Cody, Kevin, Sami, and Jey Uso. Do you see this is where it's going? Do you think they can hold this off for 2 months to do a WarGames match, Jensen?
Do I think they can? Sure, because like they need to kill time, and they're also probably trying to figure out what the hell's going on with The Rock for WrestleMania still. So like there's so many things in motion where like, all right, what's the trajectory for Cody? Like, is it WrestleMania for the title, or like, what are we doing here? And up until they figure things out, they're just killing time. And I mean, because Cody did a whole feud and storyline up to a pay-per-view with Dominic already. And like, it's just, this whole Judgment Day thing is just lingering at this point, but it's not like it's a bad story. Like, you know, I watched portions of Raw on Monday, and so, I mean, I guess ultimately it looks like it would make sense for it to be building to an eventual WarGames match where you'd have the 4 guys on Judgment Day. I guess so. You have Dom, JD will assume is actually joining the group by then. Like, he helped them win the match last night and like didn't screw up. And like, I think that he may have like finally gotten in the group at this point. He's been adjacent to them anyway for a while. So you have like JD, Damian, Finn, and Dom, and then you'd have Owen, Zayn, Jey Uso, and Cody as the other side. I know they don't like doing the intergender stuff, but man, they should really work Rhea into this. Like, I mean, she would be so good in a WarGames match against those dudes. Like, I feel bad for her in certain ways when it comes to that stuff, because she really should be competing with everybody, in my opinion. But I could, and man, I don't want to get my hopes up too much either, but that would be incredible. I mean, that's the WarGames, obviously it's a Dusty Rhodes creation, and Cody did his best to get like, you know, a version of that with Blood and Guts over in AEW and stuff. And they do NXT WarGames, but for Cody to actually be involved, in a WarGames match, and for them to do that on like, which pay-per-view were we thinking that would be heading
Survivor Series
for Survivor? Oh, that's right. I was thinking like SummerSlam. That's already. So Survivor Series. So we got Survivor Series, and then the next big one would be the Rumble.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to do in Saudi. Saudi is early November.
Right. Yeah, I don't think they do that. But you never know. They'll get Shawn Michaels out of retirement for Saudi. Yeah, I think Survivor, especially for there being Survivor Series, that makes so much sense to do like a Survivor Series show that's so known for like the team versus team aspect and stuff. I think that's what they should do. I think you're right about this. I think they should do WarGames, and it should be Team Cody versus Team Judgment Day. And I think what's another 2 months of them doing the same stuff they've been doing for the last, couple months already. So just keep dragging it out, and at least Judgment Day is over. Like, the fans seem to be liking the group. The stories seems to be pretty interesting. The Bloodline's on a different show, and they're kind of crumbling or whatever's going on with that. So like, I don't know. I just want us to get back to Cody versus Roman and stuff. But I do think it's interesting, the Cody and Jay dynamic, and the Rock thing in the back of my mind really messes with me though, because like, I just feel like all of the plans are just going to get thrown out the window, and we're just going to wind up with John Cena versus Cody or something at WrestleMania. Which would mean a lot more if like we hadn't just seen Austin Theory versus John Cena at WrestleMania, and it didn't do anything for Theory. Like
that's Theory's fault.
Well, I'm not disputing that, but I hate the optics of like, it feels like having a John Cena match is becoming less important because of some of the decisions with that kind of stuff. But it's still John Cena. But anyway, I shouldn't even be talking like that. I'm over here like coping already. I'm like, it's still John Cena, Steven. Like, Cody versus John Cena is huge. In the back of my mind, I'm like, get the Rock the hell out of there. It needs to be Roman and Cody at Mania. But anyway, I feel like that's what you got to be feeling, right? I mean, like it makes all the sense in the world to do that as the WarGames match at Survivor Series if they're going to do a WarGames match.
It seems like that's the direction they're headed. Last year, they very much touted WarGames. This year, they have not, and that's why I'm a little skeptical that they do WarGames at all, because they have not pushed it like they did last year. But Cody will certainly push for it. He's already kind of pushed for it. He definitely wants to do it. And again, it seems like they're setting it up. It makes sense. They have the two sides. They've kind of already done this feud for a very long time. I feel like I've seen Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Judgment Day since before SummerSlam, which I feel is maybe the case. Jey Uso is a new touch, and he's new. He just came over a few weeks ago after Payback, I think it was. Go ahead.
Sorry, really quick. I just remembered the reason I was getting thrown off by the Survivor Series thing. Isn't there like Fastlane like next weekend or something?
Yeah, Fastlane's next weekend.
Gotcha. I completely forgot that there was another show in between that. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Cody had the match with Dom at Money in the Bank. That was what it was. That was a do something while Brock is taking this month off type of deal. So can you stretch this for another 2 months? Might get a little iffy. Might get people burnt out on it. You throw in WarGames, I'm sure people will perk up for that. Gotta say, though, if this is their plan and they're going to try to stretch this for 2 months, don't know how compelling that television is going to be. I like the closing segment. I like the tag team match that main evented Raw. I like the closing segment with everybody brawling on Raw. I like all the parties involved in this. But when I've already seen this for months and I'm potentially getting invested in this for another 2 months, that's a tough slope right there. They got to throw some other kind of something else in there. I don't know what that is, but they got to throw something else in there if I'm going to be invested for 2 more months before they potentially do WarGames. And look, this might not be their direction at all. I'm throwing it out there because of how Raw ended and because Cody has been very adamant about wanting to do WarGames. And you only get so many shots at this. Like, how many times have we said this just throughout wrestling of like, look, if you got the match, if you feel you can put the match together, why wait on it? Why even play that game? Because you never know what's going to happen a month, 2 months, a week from now. You miss a lot of opportunities thinking, oh, don't worry, we can do this in 2 years. And then in 2 years, a lot of things have changed. So they got the match right now in 2 months, and stuff can change in 2 months. But you may as well go ahead and do it while you have all the pieces there.
Yeah. Everyone just think about how we could have had Cody Rhodes versus Sting in AEW, and that never happened because they waited too long. All the matches that Jade Cargill was probably planned to have, and then they waited. So yeah, no, I'm with you on that 100%. I'm all for the long-term storytelling and the long-term booking and like choosing a date like a year from now and booking backwards and all that kind of stuff. I'm all for that, but it is unpredictable with the injuries and contracts and stuff, and you never know. So I'm with you, Jeremy. I think they should do stuff while it's right there in front of them and not miss it. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that I'm with everyone on all this. I mean, I'm the biggest Cody Rhodes fan in the world, but like even I've had enough of the Judgment Day and him stuff already at this point. But like if it leads to WarGames, at least that's a good payoff.
Cody's gonna go insane in WarGames too. Absolute mental, doing some dumb shit. I can't wait.
Yes, it'd be awesome.
All right, here we go. AEW Spotlight, everybody.
Over 1 million fans and a great number in the demo tuned in. And it was a great show, and I think it's been a run of great shows.
AEW WrestleDream is this weekend. It is a new pay-per-view honoring the legacy and life of Antonio Inoki. We got some New Japan flavor in there. We got Zack Sabre Jr. We got Will Ospreay. Those are the two big names. Kota Ibushi, not exactly New Japan, but everyone kind of knows him through New Japan. So some New Japan flavor. Going to be headlined by Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. I imagine we had a very good segment between Swerve and Hangman Page last night. Jensen, what stands out to you on this card? We're not going to go match by match, but what kind of stands out to you of like, oh, that you're invested in this, and I think most of the matches will be good.
I mean, yeah, the whole card looks pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, as all AEW pay-per-views do. It's badass that we're finally getting the dream match between Sabre Jr. and Danielson. That's awesome. I thought the Swerve and Hangman stuff, I think up until last night was like a little hit or miss. Like, because like Swerve's promo and stuff like the other week, I felt like didn't land quite like it was supposed to. It just, do you remember what I'm talking about? Like
his first promo against
yeah,
Hangman?
Yeah.
Oh no, I love that promo. He just like cut down Hangman. Yeah,
but there was one promo I felt like where he kind of was like, it just didn't come across how I think they wanted it to. I can't explain it, but I like Swerve a lot. I always have. I like that he's getting the position he's getting right now against Hangman. But regardless, what I was getting at was last night, I think they brought it all together really, really well, because Hangman for the first time in a long time felt like he had some fire, and like that was, he needed that. And when it was happening, I realized I was like, oh, this was the story. Like it wasn't him just being like, this is the story, is him like getting to this point now and like getting back to where he was. And I think Swerve is a perfect foil for him because they're so different. Like they're both great in-ring wrestlers, but the two of them personality wise and presentation wise and the way they carry themselves and like even just like their cadence and the way that they speak and communicate and stuff, it's all completely different. And it's cool because like Swerve wants what Hangman has as far as being like one of the faces of the company, former champion and all that stuff. So I think they've done a really good job, especially last night. And we really wanted to see, outside of knowing that's going to be a good in-ring match, they've made me really want to see that match even more as of last night. Trying to think of other stuff that I really am looking forward to, because like the MJF versus Righteous thing is kind of weird with it being a handicap match, but I assume he's going to beat both of them. Let's see. Kingston and Shibata is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I'll shout that one out for sure. I mean, that's amazing, especially considering we thought Shibata may never wrestle again, and now he's just like doing it on the reg and against Kingston. And this is for the ROH World title. It's wild. Julia Hart's doing great. Her Statlander, I think, is going to be really good. So, I mean, this is a really good show from top to bottom. I like that Starks and Yuta got a match on here. I've been a fan of those two guys for a long time. I saw them both wrestle at a show called Dojo Pro like years and years and years ago in Nashville. And it's cool to see where both those guys are at. I mean, everything on the show looks good, like this is a stacked card from top to bottom. But I think the thing I'm the most looking forward to is probably finally seeing Danielson and Sabre Jr., followed closely by Shibata and Kingston.
Jeff Elijar says, do you guys get the feeling that Hangman's promo last night was a huge metaphor for Punk? Yeah, I kind of had the same thought.
Yeah, and he's done that a few times I've caught. There's been a few things he's said kind of in passing and almost under his breath where I can tell that he's talking about Punk.
I mean, it is like if you're inside enough, you get it of like, oh yeah, it seems like a CM Punk thing. But two, if you just watch the television program, it all played out on TV. After he lost the title, he kind of, outside of the Moxley stuff, which he did mention, he didn't do a whole lot after losing the title. I legitimately cannot remember, outside of Moxley, what Hangman did after losing the title. Like, he worked some trio stuff. That's all I remember. And that was more recent, where he just worked the with the Elite, like immediate losing the title. I don't remember if he was on the next pay-per-view or anything. Like, I don't remember what he did after that. I remember the Moxley stuff. I was there for the match earlier this year. We got the concussion, then they did the death match and everything. Otherwise, so if you're just a television person, you're like, yeah, it probably was a black cloud that like he didn't do a whole lot, because I watched the TV and I didn't see him a whole lot, especially for a guy who is the world champion. But of course, if you're inside and you know all the other stuff, you're probably like, oh yeah, that's a CM Punk was that cloud right there.
Exactly. Because I think, to your point, like the most recent pay-per-view where he was in the pre-show battle royal or whatever. Like, yeah. Like that's it, But no, when he was talking about the black cloud being gone and all that stuff, like I definitely picked up on that stuff. I really like the line. Oh, sorry, brother. I really like the line about when Swerve said something about like Buckshot versus Killshot. I was like, that's a good deep cut, being the former Killshot from Lucha Underground.
Yeah, what's a farmer to a mogul? What's a cowboy to an outlaw? What's a buckshot to a killshot? I feel like he played off of a Kanye West song as well as that. Like, what's a king to a god? I think Kanye says. That's what it reminded me of. One thing I don't fully like about this feud is Swerve being like, if I was given the opportunities that you were given, then I would have been this. And it just sort of, no church in the wild. There you go. Thank you, Wes Hobel. The thing with that, Jay-Z said it, not Kanye. I knew it was a Kanye-esque song on that. But the stuff like, if I was given this opportunity, you were handed all these opportunities. It's like, we watched him like win stuff though. It just kind of it takes away the television aspect of it. It was like, oh, the booker gave you, Tony Khan just gave you all of this. If I was given all of this, I would have been fine. Like, I would have done the same thing. Just they handed everything. I can see how that takes people out of it a little bit. It's like, just try to remember it's still a television show when people won stuff on this, and it's not just, hey, this happened because the booker just sort of gave it all to you. And because now you're basically saying like, well, Hangman was down this past year because the booker took all that away from him anyway. Like, it wasn't given anything this past year. So the balance there can be tricky to pull off. And I think when you're telling Hangman of like, hey, you lost your fire, you didn't like nothing, or you're not the same person that you were, you lost your aggressiveness, what happened to you? But then you're also saying, oh, well, the booker handed you all this. Couldn't you just as easily be saying like, well, yeah, you weren't given shit this past year, so maybe that's why you lost your fire and everything. Like, the balance can be tough there.
That's a good point though. It kind of goes along the lines of like when Punk was doing that whole brawl out press conference talking about how Heyman had never accomplished anything, and it's like, yeah, you're holding the world champion. No, I know, yeah. I know, but I'm just saying, like, it's the same kind of idea of like, right? Like, we've seen this in front of our eyes being successful, like, and so it is a weird. That is a weird kind of call out or point for them to make, I think, in promos like that. So I'm with you on that. But I do think they did a lot last night to make, like, AEW. I think even AEW haters would have to give AEW credit on their contract signings and stuff. I think they come across way better and like way less predictable than like what you normally see in WWE contract signings and stuff like that. where they're always a little different. And sometimes nothing even really happens. Like they pretty much both sign and like stare at each other and like it gets heated. This one was good. He like stabs Swerve in the back of the hand with the pen and stuff. It was like, it was intense, you know? So yeah, I liked this stuff. And I like that they're really building this, because I had imagined Hangman's gonna win, but if Swerve wins, like that's a huge win for him and he'll get elevated, you know? So
I think Swerve's gonna win. I think this is the first in a series between
You're
them.
probably right about that.
And being in Seattle, Swerve's hometown. Look, Swerve goes full heel, by the way. Stopping the Nana dance, that was a big time heel move. Taking the shot. I was waiting for someone to take a shot at the Broncos and Russell Wilson last night, since they were in Colorado. It's like, where are my true heels at? Like, what are we doing here? Shout out to True Heel Heat. Like, what are we doing? And then Swerve finally did it in the closing. I was like, all right, there we go. Swerve is a guy who, finally, like, he wants to be a heel. He doesn't care about the cheers and, cool lines that'll pop people. He wants to be a heel. And he did that. But I think Swerve's going to win. And I think it's going to be the first in a series between these two. I don't think this is going to be a one-off.
I like it. I think either way, it's a win-win. Swerve wins, he's seen as an even bigger star. Hangman wins, he's still established as one of the top guys. Both guys are great. And if it leads to more matches, that's fine. I'm totally down for a feud between these two that lasts longer.
And then Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr., that's obviously the match I'm very much looking forward to. It's a match that over a year in the making, as far as when we could have had it, could have happened last year at Forbidden Door. Didn't, because Danielson got injured. And then now we're getting it to this Sunday. One thing that's kind of interesting to me is, Danielson's coming off of the broken arm, and he did an interview with the New York Post that came out this morning. And he kind of said this after the strap match with Ricky of like, I didn't really have to use my arm in that match. Like, I just kind of hid, didn't have to use it a whole lot. And then he did a tag team match, a little protected, that one. And then he did the Texas Death match. Again, another gimmick match where if you watch it, you can protect your arm, which is very funny to say of like, yeah, go out there, do a strap match, go to a Texas Death match. You actually can protect yourself more than in a normal wrestling match by doing this kind of stuff. But he said, like, I was able to protect myself more. Now he's, of course, wrestling a guy who is all about limb work, all about like manipulating joints and stuff. He knows Danielson's coming off an arm injury. In kayfabe terms, in television terms, like, he would probably want to exploit and attack that. He says he's fully cleared. We'll see how he works with the arm and how much he's able to really use the arm in this match. But I think we're going to get a very technical battle between them. I do wonder, I think the crowd's going to react fine to it. It's Danielson, it's Seattle. They're going to get up for just about everything. Danielson certainly knows how to structure a match to get the highs and the lows when it comes to the technicalities in there as well. But I do wonder the overall reaction to this match and how that's going to work, especially after, because I think there were some lows in the Danielson Okada match because it was a different style and they'd just seen Ospreay and Omega just before that. So you got to be able to work the crowd, and this style can be tough to work a bigger audience. I trust Danielson to pull it off, but I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, me too. I'm very much looking forward. I mean, that's been a dream match for forever. So it's gonna be a good one.
And then again, the rest of the card, the build might be a little uneven for some of the stuff, but all these matches, you look at them on paper, it's like, yeah, that's gonna be really good. And
it's AEW pay-per-view. At the end of the day, like, I think you're always gonna get your money's worth on AEW pay-per-view.
I agree. The other spotlight, my AEW spotlight, is the MJF and Jay White segment, because unfortunately, Adam Cole injured. That's a tough injury too. Just jumping off the ramp, like, that's just a pretty normal thing, you would think. Like, you think of all the bumps these guys take and stuff, and he's just jumping off the elevated ramp, lands awkwardly. I don't know how long he's out for. I mean, multiple broken bones, ligament damage. Like, doesn't sound good. And that was the hottest thing in AEW too.
It's bizarre. It's so unfortunate when stuff like that happens, especially like you said, because it was wrestling related. It was him just running down the ramp and just landing weird on his ankle. And it's just so, with all the stuff these guys do in the ring, for like that to be, it's like, for football fans who might remember this a handful of years ago, the Minnesota Vikings quarterback years ago was Teddy Bridgewater. And the dude literally he blew his entire leg out just walking backwards during non-contact drills, just planted his foot wrong. And it's just like, it's that kind of stuff where you're just like, this dude's out here doing Panama sunrises and dives to the outside and flips and all this stuff and picking people up and throwing them down and throwing people onto his own knees and all this stuff. And then just the big one is, I mean, I know Adam Cole has had plenty of injuries and concussions and whatnot, but like the big one right now is just running down to the ring and jumping. Me and you could do that easy, what he just did, but like it's just
I'm afraid to now.
It is
I'm afraid to now.
Well, I'm not saying. I mean, this is nothing. Obviously, it's like my point is, it's such a freak thing that like it's a jump that anyone could make. But just the way that it happened, he just landed wrong. And it's just a complete freak. There's no other way of saying it. It's a freak accident. And
yeah,
that in the worst timing ever. It's just like, damn.
When he came out last night and he was heavily wrapped, like he was on crutches and everything, I said, like, this is either a great bit or there ain't no fucking way he's wrestling on Sunday, because he was way too, like, they put it together like he was legitimately hurt, because as we found out, he was legitimately hurt. Like, they did it so much to where it's like, oh, this is either like they're really leaning into this and nope, I'm good to go, or yeah, he's really screwed because they did him up last night. And obviously they had to, because it is a legitimate injury. But best wishes to Adam Cole. He was, after coming back from everything last year, being on this super hot run that he was on, it really sucks. It really sucks that he goes out like this, of all things, as well. The injuries always suck, but just jumping off the ramp like that, like that's very, and it seems like it's not a good injury. Like, no injury is good, but the way they were describing it, it feels like he's going to miss, like, I feel like 3 months is minimum. And it might be even more than that. Like, I don't even think they really gave a timetable, but I'd be shocked if he was back by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, the only chance you would have, they'd have to, I'm not advocating this, by the way, they'd have to shoot him up with so much Novocaine for him to have like any chance of wrestling anytime soon, I think, because you could tell even when he landed, the second he landed, I knew something was wrong, because he started immediately hobbling. And I got to give him so much credit for like no selling that to the best of his ability to like get the rest of that story over and like just get through the rest of the show. Because as he was saying there, he had to have known. Like he may not know like the severity of it, because there's probably some adrenaline still going, being out there in front of the crowd. But like he had to have known like he was effed like the second he started trying to run on that thing. And you can even tell just the way he was standing on the outside, he was like leaning up against the apron, like trying to keep weight off of it and stuff. And it was just like, I knew it. I spotted it immediately, and I was like, oh shit. And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, he was definitely trying to like test it and see like how he could do and everything. And just like, okay, maybe the adrenaline will kick in and I'll be fine. Maybe it's not too bad. Maybe I just tweaked something. But yeah, the longer, I mean, we all watched Grand Slam last week, or I assume most of us did. The longer like he kept just limping on it, and it was very clear that like, oh yeah, this was not a tweak that is now worn off and he's fine. This is something a little bit more. At that point, you were just hoping, hopefully it's not bad. Hopefully, like once you get to the back, get some ice on it, get it elevated, rest ice
compression elevation. Yes.
Once you take care of it, like it'll be okay. As we learned, it was not okay.
No, well, now, I mean, that did lead to, and I could be wrong about this, but there's like the tie-in at the end of the show last night on Dynamite that I feel like may also be because kind of the injury, maybe that they might be going with this other kind of story along with it.
Well, I think, and we'll get into this, I think that's why we had Jay White last night. I don't think Jay White was an original plan for last night. I could be wrong, but they were. Adam Cole and MJF were the tag team champions. They were going to face the Righteous. They're probably going to do something like that. They were still doing the stuff with the Kingdom. But it's like, well, now Adam Cole's out. Who knows for how long he's out? Who is the next challenger for MJF? What are we gonna do here? And then here comes Jay White. This is the big challenger now. I thought the promo segment was very good. I thought MJF got the better of him if we're scoring it in that way. Jay White did very well, but like him, it ruled, but like I don't think it made for like this great promo like everyone was saying, where he's just like listing off nicknames.
I was about to say he went for minutes of just like nickname, like looking at the crowd pointing around nickname, like looking back at him, nickname. No, but MJF, the tofu comparison, I'd imagine he came up with that himself, or if not, whoever was helping him like put that together. He was so spot on with his description of Jay White, like because. And this isn't a knock on Jay White, by the way. It is from the promo perspective, which is that's what it's meant to do. But like that has been the knock on Jay White for so many fans for so long. It's like looks incredible, great in the ring, all these top spots, but there was like always something that felt off or missing. And like I remember when they brought him back to New Japan as the Switchblade, and he got like a massive push after his excursion. And even then, people were like, he seems way more badass, but like something just seems like it's missing. And then like he gets the Bullet Club, and it doesn't seem like it's as big as the Bullet Club was, previously and all this stuff. And I just think that MJF, comparing him to tofu, how it takes on the flavor, what's around it, and all this stuff, I thought that was an incredible promo by MJF, honestly, last night. And Jay White had an uphill battle. No matter who was across the ring from MJF, it was going to be tough, especially when MJF was out there just like spitting facts. But I think Jay White did a good job though. Like he didn't go out there and get owned. He did stand his ground good enough to where in a match between the two is going to be fantastic whenever that happens for sure. So, but no, I'm with you. I think MJF, like if it was like a 10-8 round.
I don't know if I go 10-8. Wow.
I go 10-8 because it wasn't close enough to be a 10-9. I think MJF decisively won the round.
10-8 is like. They don't just hand those out. Maybe more lately, but I have very hard time going 10-8s.
I'm pretty liberal with my 10-8s. I'll be fair. My 10-8s for the UFC are way more liberal than what most judges give them. Because this is a whole other tangent. I don't like how 10-9 rounds. There's so many rounds where like it isn't as close as the other round, but it gets scored the same. And I wish they used the 10-8s more often because it would actually, I think, distinguish the winner way more often. But because some people barely win a round, they win 10-9, but then the other guy might like really decisively win the round, they still only get 10-9. And anyway, I think I'm with you.
Right.
Sorry, who had it right?
Pride.
Yes.
The thing in totality.
Yes. And I do think it matters more if like at the end of the fight, like if you're on top, mounted on somebody, pounding them in the face, like you probably should win. Because if this was a real fight at the end of the fight, like you're still on top, you're still good to go. The other guy's getting beat up, and the other guy might win. I hate when someone stands up at the end of the fight and their face is completely destroyed and they can barely move. They're being carried to the corner, and then the decision gets read out and they get their hand raised. And it's like you just got your ass kicked. But anyways, we won the first 2 rounds barely, and then got your ass kicked in the third and won.
Right. It takes away we're in a whole different topic now. That. It takes away the long-term storytelling, I guess, of the fight as well. Is like if one guy is just kind of working over for the first 2 rounds to really set up for a big third round, well, it doesn't matter if he doesn't finish him in the third round. If the other guy can just do enough in the first 2 rounds to win, like if somebody gasses out in that third round, but they didn't do a whole lot in the first 2, but they still won the rounds, but then they get their ass kicked in the third round, well, if that's only 10-9, you still lose. That's why I much prefer scoring the fights in totality.
That's exactly why I like the idea of scoring totality, like you just said, like pride and or being more liberal with like 10-8, 10-7, stuff like that to actually show the gap in how close these rounds actually were. That said, I think MJF won the round against Jay White, but Jay White didn't get his ass kicked. He did not get his ass kicked out there, but like MJF won.
We did have the big closing segment as well, where Jay White's getting attacked by masked men. One of the men wasn't a devil mask. That was not an MJF build underneath that devil mask. I will say that man was a little thinner than MJF. I don't know if the person in the mask is actually going to be the person who is revealed. It might have just been a stand-in gimmick at this point, because I don't know if they know what the plan fully is. I've seen the speculation of, oh, was it the Kingdom? Was it Adam Cole, Roddy, and the Kingdom, like doing MJF's bidding here? Or was it maybe Andrade's faction, since Andrade still has beef with Jay White on Collision? You know, I guess we'll see in due time. Don't know when, but in due time. What are your thoughts on the attack to close the show?
So when you look at the people involved, and they can always like red herring this to where, like, you know, anyone can be under those suits, but like when it finally revealed, it could be, you know, anybody involved. But one of the people looked like they were wearing a neck brace under the thing, because their neck was like super thick. And I was like, okay, that could be Roddy. And if it's Roddy, I think the other two could be the Kingdom. One idea I saw floated out there, and I didn't pay much attention to like the heights and the actual build of everybody, but the person in the devil mask was not MJF, at least in that segment. That was not MJF in that suit, or in that getup. One idea I saw out there that I thought was really potentially clever. What if that was like Britt Baker? Like, you know what I mean? What if she's involved with like the Kingdom or something now, and like that's gonna cause, like, you know, and Adam Cole could be in with that, or she's either working with Adam Cole behind the scenes, or she's against Adam Cole, like, you know what I mean? Like, but there's the link there of Britt maybe being involved. I like that idea a lot, actually. Like if Britt maybe was the one in the devil mask, like, because it was someone that looks thinner, and they could do stuff to kind of disguise who's in that, you know. So maybe it's like Britt is involved with the Kingdom.
Well, here's the thing. There were 5 people. Because there were 4 attackers, but then if you look, the devil was actually off screen during the attack, right, and then comes in. So it was 5 total people. And some people have said Cole, Roddy, Kyle O'Reilly, right, and then Bennett and Taven. Those are your 5 there.
People are saying Maria too, which I get the Maria comparison there. Or pick there too. I get it with the Kingdom. But
again, I don't think that the people underneath those masks are gonna be the people who are revealed, because you're gonna have look, some people are gonna certainly, once the reveal happens, they're gonna go back and watch this clip and be like, nope, that's definitely not those people, type of thing. But otherwise, like, if you're just watching the television show, you're just waiting for the reveal, but it'll be Retribution-esque of those people who initially started with Retribution, or not the people who ended up being in Retribution.
Yeah, one of them's gonna be like Anthony Ogogo. We're like, wait, no one was that big in the attack. Like, yeah. But no, I like that there's another story developing on top of all of this. And I think the Kingdom being involved makes the most sense. But I would love if Kyle O'Reilly was back and he was involved in this. Like, I can't wait to have Kyle O'Reilly is one of my favorite professional wrestlers of all time. I love that dude. I hate the bad luck he has had with his injuries and his health and stuff. Like, I hope Kyle's involved in this. I would love to see that.
Yeah. I don't know when Kyle's coming back. I know Adam Cole just said like there's still no real timetable. No idea. I do wish Kyle O'Reilly the best, and I miss him wrestling as well. I thought NXT kind of missed an opportunity with him in the Cole feud. They could have made him their top guy during that time, and they didn't.
One, and O'Reilly had like just beat Darby or someone big on like one-on-one on like a pay-per-view or something, like right before he got hurt too. Like they were finally he made it all the way to the finals against Moxley for like that title tournament.
Yeah,
also.
That was his last match.
Yeah, you're right. So I mean, they were finally like they were going with him, it looked like. So yeah, massive shout out to Kyle O'Reilly. I love that dude.
I'm gonna address this right fast. Wysellable says, do you guys think they'll pick this up on Collision? I like the idea of them weaving Dynamite and Collision stories together. I do too, and I hope they do, especially because Jay White has been such a Collision guy. I think you kind of gotta address this in some way on Collision. I think there's been that, and we know the reasons why, there'd been that divide between Dynamite and Collision, where now you don't have to do that, and they should thread things together on both shows. And this is how you ended Dynamite. I don't think you can go an entire episode of Collision without at least addressing it in some way, whether it's a video package or the announcers mention it. I think you got to show the video. Again, Jay White and these guys are Collision guys. They should be addressing this.
Yeah, I agree. There should be more crossover in the two shows now that a certain Pepsi drinker is not involved. So
Philip's not there.
Our product is what it is. We're going straight up the middle.
My other spotlight for this week, Jensen, is Sami Callihan, a free agent, soon to be free agent, I should say. I believe it's September 30th. So that's on Saturday where his contract expires. Pretty surprising. He's kind of teased contract expiring before, and then he's always signed with Impact. And I don't think anybody really thought otherwise that he was going to re-sign with Impact. It's always been the first of the year. So I was actually surprised that his contract was up now. Usually again, when he signs, it's the beginning of the year. It's like January 1st and he signs for a year, 2 years, whatever it is. So the fact that it's expiring now, seems to be a free agent. I know there's a lot of opinions out there on Sami Callihan for his work and things like that and his different characters and gimmicks. I will say is what he provides to wrestling, certainly through Wrestling Revolver. I think Sami Callihan deserves flowers for that because I think he's turned Wrestling Revolver into one of the top independent promotions on the scene. And I think because of Wrestling Revolver, we are probably going to keep Callihan on the independent area. I don't think like he's going to NXT or anything like that. I think it's going to remain, whether it be AEW, whether he just stays with Impact or whether he just branches out more on the indies. I think Callahan's going to kind of not be in WWE. That's my main point on this.
Yeah, I'm with you. He, if I remember correctly, he basically he mutually parted ways or quit or whatever NXT the first time he was there. Like, he didn't have a good experience there to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, I just figure Sammy's kind of like an Impact lifer or
it always seems like it.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing either. Like, I mean, that's a good spot. And he's always had a good spot in the company. And I thought it was smart that they'd had him and Rich Swann teaming together recently and stuff. I think it was good for both those guys to have something that like mattered as a tag team without having to put them in like the main title spots and stuff like that so often. My honest prediction is that I think Sami will wind up back in Impact. I honestly do. I think like maybe he'll do more with Revolver. I mean, he'll definitely do more with Revolver, but like maybe some more indies and stuff like that. But I think ultimately, or maybe he'll pop up in like MLW or something because like, you know, they do good with with established talent over there and stuff. So I don't know. I don't know what his future is, but I honestly kind of expect him to ultimately wind up back in Impact at some point.
I kind of have the same feeling. It feels like he's going to stick with Impact. Maybe he works. The thing is, ROH tapes on Saturdays and Revolver runs kind of whenever they want, but they do run kind of adjacent to a lot of AEW stuff because they get they can get like Moxley and things like that. Like Moxley and Callihan are very close. So I know they run close to a lot of AEW events and in the hopes that they can book Moxley for stuff. Moxley's working one of their upcoming shows. Well, I don't know about now. It was scheduled to work one of their upcoming shows. But I think because of Revolver, he's going to stay kind of on the independent scene. It definitely makes sense that he would just stay in Impact. I could certainly see that. I could see him just taking a break and doing his own thing for a little bit, then returning to Impact. ROH, though, might be a spot. I don't know. It might be a spot, and because that, like I've always said, ROH needs their own sort of established people, and they don't need the crossover as much with AEW. I think Callihan is a guy who can come there, be an established guy, and doesn't need to be on AEW TV. And I don't know what Tony Khan's teasing this new era thing for Sunday. I think part of it is going to have to do with ROH and New Japan Strong. So I could maybe see Callihan fitting in somewhere in there.
Yeah, I can see that too. And I know you mentioned Moxley and Callahan's past. I could see something even short term where like Moxley and Callihan maybe on like AEW TV for like one big match or something like that too with their history. So
your other spotlight, Jensen, was Wrestlers, the OVW docuseries on Netflix. What were your thoughts? Have you watched the whole thing?
I did. I watched all 7 episodes. I didn't have to talk too long about it, but I just want to kind of throw it out there. I thought it was a really good documentary. Not all of it, I think, was like completely factual. I thought it was like kind of interesting how they talked throughout it, especially Al Snow, who I don't dislike Al Snow, by the way. I just think he has like a very interesting mindset in wrestling. He's still very married to the idea of like needing weekly television, even though his weekly television is like public access, like basically level stuff that like no one's really watching. They got 74 pay-per-views off of Fight TV for their show during the thing. Like they were projecting they were hoping to get 500. They got 74 at $15 a piece. And I'm like, that's where and anyway, business stuff aside, like that's where like they're a money pit because they won't give up on certain aspects of like their company that is just burning money and they don't need to be doing it. And they constantly talk so much throughout the series about, they're like, you know, there's WWE and then there's AEW and then there's Impact and us. And it's like, no, like there's a lot of companies that I would put like I can't say this definitively because I don't have their numbers, but I'd imagine GCW gets a lot more than 74 buys.
Yeah.
You know, like, and granted, now they're part of the $5 tier on Fight Plus and all that stuff. But my point is I could probably rattle off 20 independent companies right now that are getting more than $74, $15 buys on their shows and stuff like that. But the actual series I thought was interesting. There are some talents that I thought were worth keeping your eyes on that were in that series too. I really enjoyed their view or getting insight more onto Malabali Shira. I think he's a really, really good dude. Seems like a good man. And he's somebody who I really liked in Impact, and he's still involved there. And he was the OVW champion throughout most of the docu-series. And he just seems like a very humble guy. And I felt he got a really bad shake in the WWE because he was there for a super short amount of time, but he's got a great look. And he just seems like a very good human being, very, very humble. Hollywood Haley J. I have some polarizing opinions on her, but I think she has a lot of star potential, but she also might get in her own way. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, I think it's worth watching, everybody. You know, if you got Netflix, it's 7 episodes, or like an hour long. But I thought it was a really good series and a good look at kind of like that in between of like indie wrestling and like trying to become like a superstar in this company that is known to make superstars for the WWE, you know, years ago and stuff like that. So, yeah, I thought it was interesting. And there's the dynamic, the guy who like the money guy for the company and Al Snow kind of butting heads over stuff. And there's a lot of good behind the scenes stuff. Like, it's an interesting look at the world of wrestling. Once again, I don't think all of it was like super truthful, but it was a good show.
If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It is on Netflix. I've talked to people about it. I've seen clips of it. Some of the clips are, Al Snow. I don't know if he's doing himself too many favors.
No, listen, Al Snow. I think but I also think he's getting more heat than he probably should over it. To be completely fair, like he has outdated views on certain stuff, on a lot of stuff actually. But like he means well with most of it, because you can tell he's very concerned about protecting the wrestling business and very concerned about like his own presentation. Like if he's going to get involved in something, he doesn't want to embarrass himself or the wrestling business when he does it. But he's also pigeonholing himself from a lot of success that OVW could have because of his mindset and decision making with certain things. So
let's move on to our indie spotlight.
I'm going to give a big motherfucking shout out.
Indie Spotlight. Jensen, yours this week was Kevin Koo winning the Black Label Pro Heavyweight Championship and Black Label Pro Turbo Graps tournament as well. Your thoughts on Kevin Koo's run where he defeated Cole Radrick. He beat up Cole Radrick. I'm always a fan of that in the finals.
Yes. If you want like more detailed thoughts on this, I reviewed it over on the Weekender for Fightful Select. Shout out Kevin Koo. He made it all the way through the tournament, beat his own partner, Dominic Guarini, in the first round, beat Mean Jay Lee in the second round, won over, I pinned both Ice and Filthy Tom in the third round, and then went on to beat Cole Radrick in the finals. So good stuff there from Kevin Koo. Love to see it.
Watch the match between him and Dominic Guarini. That was, as you would expect, like, great. They're partners, they're friends, they know each other very well. Fantastic yes
match. And I'm a big Koo guy, I'm a big Cole guy, so like two of our dudes in there in the finals. Cole defended the title throughout the tournament also to get to the finals to defend it against Koo, and just good to see Kevin Koo. More singles titles, good. Like, he's been the Action champion before, he's been the singles champion in other promotions. mainly known as a tag team guy, but I love that him and Guarini can both do their own things and be successful as tag team guys and as singles guys. And Q deserves it. And he's been a big part of BLP for a long time too. So like I'm very happy to see it for Kevin Q to get this win and to win Turbo Graps to become the heavyweight champion of Black Label Pro.
We had Kevin Koo on In the Weeds this past Monday. That's up on Fightful Overbooked. Everyone can check out our interview with him. We did ask him, Jensen. I don't know if you caught the interview, but we did ask him about Violence is Forever against FTR. Like if they would answer the open challenge. He once again seems confident that it'll happen soon. He did. Remember when we had him on, he was like, I don't know if Tony Khan knows who we are, type of thing. Yeah. He did make mention of like, yeah, Dominic and I went up to Tony, made sure, shook his hand, introduced ourselves like, hey, we exist, we're here, type of thing. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I know we're both looking forward to that match when it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Massive shout out Kevin Q. He's a guy I've talked about him before. The first time I met him, I interviewed him in my old apartment in Nashville, Tennessee, probably like 6 years ago. And I've been a fan ever since. So
and then my indie spotlight is Lee Moriarty against Jonathan Gresham from Prestige this past weekend. One of Jonathan Gresham's first matches back. He faced Speedball at an Impact taping as well. And Moriarty, a guy who's in AEW, who has done in AEW, who is now kind of aligned with Shane Taylor Promotions, which is good for him. But we finally got to see Moriarty on a longer match here, and Jonathan Gresham working a longer match. I thought it was really good, as you would expect from these two. I love the story about, this. The show was called something about respect. That the name completely slips my mind now. But it was about respect, and this match was kind of just about respect of like, hey, let's shake hands, everything's good, or have a good exchange. And then Gresham's like, nah, fuck all this. Like now I'm sick of this, and you could see the aggression pick up and everything. And they talked about Gresham. Moriarty had never defeated Gresham and everything, and then in the end, Gresham tapped out to Moriarty.
Yes, it was the Respect Issue was the name of the show.
The Respect Issue. There you go. I knew it was something. Brain.
You're good. And no, it was a really good match because, like you said, at the beginning of the match they were shaking hands, but then like throughout the match they started rejecting the handshakes. And the whole story here was they had wrestled each other either 3 or 4 times previously, and Gresham had always beat Moriarty. And this was a big like test for Moriarty to get a big win over. They were comparing it on commentary to like LeBron having to go through like a lot of the stars when he came into the league, like to get the respect and like become like the man himself. And no, this was a great match. I mean, as you'd expect. I mean, a lot of great train wrestling. I love when they mix it up with like the strikes. Like Gresham does really good like leg sweeps and stuff like that too, chops and whatnot. And I mean, yeah, just really, the ending sequence was actually really interesting too, because Gresham has Moriarty in a crucifix pin, and Moriarty is like kicking his legs up into the air to keep his shoulders off of the ground, off of the mat. I've never really seen somebody avoid a pin like that. And during that actually caused his escape right into the Border City stretch, which is what he tapped Gresham out to. So not only did he beat Jonathan Gresham, he made him tap out. Like he made another technician tap out to a submission hold. So Moriarty finally gets a W over Gresham. And yeah, this was really good stuff. I mean, this was a fantastic wrestling match. I can't remember how long it went, but it was a pretty decently long match too. It was probably at least 15 minutes or so, I would guess.
Yeah.
How much?
18.
18, yeah. So no, I agree. I think y'all should check it out. I haven't had a chance to catch the entire Prestige event yet, but I skipped around before locking in on the Moriarty and Gresham match, and damn good match between those two, as you'd expect to see. So definitely check that out if you haven't checked it out yet. Great technical matchup, good storytelling throughout it as well, and Moriarty getting a big win over a guy who's like a mentor figure for like a lot of people who are consider themselves technicians in pro wrestling.
Yeah. Everyone go check it out. It's on IWTV, independentwrestling.tv. One thing I will say about Prestige, they gotta fix that lighting on that show. Lighting made it kind of difficult on this. So yeah, I do like Prestige though. They put on a lot of good shows. And Moriarty and Gresham was a fantastic match. All right, Jensen, let everybody know where they can find you at.
Yes, I go clock in for the shoot job. You can use code Fight Talk on independentwrestling.tv when you go watch that Prestige show. You can follow me on Twitter or X at FightTalk _FIGHTTALK _. Fightful Select Weekender podcast is every Sunday on FightfulSelect.com. This Sunday, probably not though, because of WrestleDream, and I'm going to be I'm going to be with my parents for the Vikings game in the afternoon. Then there's WrestleDream at night. So I'll probably record the weekend or on Monday, this upcoming Monday. So FightfulSelect.com. I always tweet out when the show goes up live, so y'all can go check it out. And yeah, I hope y'all enjoy this interview you're about to hear with Jon Alba. Really good stuff. Good dude. Joined us last minute as well, which I always appreciate when I always appreciate it, especially when we have like a short notice invite and someone jumps on with us, is like super appreciated. And Jon was a guy we wanted to talk to for a long time, and the timing was perfect. So yeah, I'm going to go clock in for the shoot job. Good seeing you, chat. Good seeing everybody. I doubt that I'll be there later tonight, but there is a BLP Kosher show later tonight. One of my favorite rappers in the game right now, representing for the Jews out there in the rap game. And I really like his music. I unironically really like his music. And he's playing a show here in Atlanta later tonight. So if I'm off work on time and I'm feeling it, I might slide through during that show later tonight. But hope everyone has a good weekend. And once again, good seeing you, Jeremy. Good seeing you, chat. I'm going to go talk to people on the phone for the next 9 hours straight.
Enjoy. We'll talk a little trash throughout the weekend with the Panthers.
Yes.
No, two 0-3 teams talking trash.
Before you sign off, Jeremy, like when you do your, like after the interview or whatever, even, or maybe right now before you do the interview, pick out a punishment. If you lose the game this weekend, if I lose, I'll buy an LA Knight t-shirt off WWE Shop and I'll wear it for an entire episode. I don't have time. I got to clock in, but pick something out, tweet it to me. Y'all help Jeremy figure it out. We need a bet for this Sunday for Vikings versus Panthers, Skull Vikings.
I'll put it on Twitter as well. Yeah, we'll figure out a punishment for me. Somebody can, I don't know, come up with something. Somebody bad with this kind of stuff. I leave it to you. I leave it in the hands of y'all, which is not a great idea, honestly. We'll figure something out though. Yeah, 2 0-3 teams, Panthers, Vikings. Oh. At least we're not the Broncos and Bears. We're not 2 0-3 teams, Panthers, Vikings, and it's actually not the worst game of the weekend. There's actually a worse game than that. That's how bad the Broncos and Bears are. Let's get into it. Creator Spotlight. We got Jon Alba from Wrestling According to Alba, from the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy podcast, from Strictly Business with Eric Bischoff podcast, from your Twitter feeds, from your television screens, from your Emmy Award shows, the great Jon Alba. Welcome back, everyone, to the Creator Spotlight here on the Spotlight. I'm still Jeremy Lambert. That's still Stephen Jensen. And the man below us is a face you know, a face you love, a punchable face, according to many people in the world of wrestling. Some who we've had on this show. He's a host on Fight TV, host of The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, with Matt Hardy, Strictly Business with Eric Bischoff. You see him on Out of Bounds on the Know Your News Network. He's Bruce Springsteen's #1 fan. He's a damn Emmy Award winner. He is Jon Alba. Jon, how you doing, buddy?
We got to talk about this whole punchable face thing.
What?
Because I listen to the Spotlight. Okay,
sorry.
Pay attention. And it seems that any time you have a guest that has ever worked with me in any capacity, you immediately just resort to asking about how punchable my face is.
Yeah.
It's like, is that your icebreaker? Is that your way of getting them comfortable?
Yes. Because I know they're gonna crack up at the answer. Like, you know what? That's pretty true. Jon Alba does have a punchable face.
Is that your way of being like, hey, here's some small talk?
Yes. That is
you nailed it. That's literally exactly what's happening.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd say I'm flattered, but that would be a lie. So
you can't say that it doesn't work, Jon.
Hey, whatever works. My one mentality that I always carry with me is never yuck anyone's yum. And if that's your yum, then hey, more power to you.
Everyone laughs. They give a smile. They give a nice answer. They're like, all right, yeah, we're just.
What's the nice answer? That yes, I have a punchable face. Is that the nice answer?
Yeah. Some people take pride in this, Jon Alba.
Okay, all right.
I guess I will. The next time we have a guest on who is in your vicinity,
my periphery.
Yeah, 7 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon. Next time we have a guest on, I will ask about your beautiful hair. Okay. How about that?
I brought that up actually to Channing. I said John's hair stays very still, even in action, which I think is very impressive.
It really does. It really does. And people think I have a ton of product in it, but I really don't. It's just trained. It knows.
I can confirm, as someone who has kissed Jon Alba's hair, can confirm there was no product, anything like that. All natural.
Well, there is product. There is product. We're not going to sit here and pretend there's no product. But I think people think I just take like globs of gel and just like run it through it, and they think that I just hairspray for hours. Like, man, it's a little bit of mousse and it's a little bit of hairspray, and that's it. It's pretty quick. It knows what it's doing.
Well, beautiful hair.
Thank you.
Beautiful man. All right, I won't talk about your punchable face. Let's just talk about.
The thing is, too, people probably don't even have context. Like, that was a headline that you wrote a couple years ago, but there's probably people who are like, what does he mean by that? Like, what is the context of him?
The context, everyone knows what a punchable face is.
But there's a reason why that became a thing. And it's because I was, and this is a very true story. This is literally how I got into the performing side of pro wrestling. I was interviewing Billy Gunn at a one-man show in Bangor, Maine. And I'm speaking and he just stops me and goes, anyone ever tell you have a very punchable face? And I'm like, okay. And he goes, no, man, like, don't be offended. He's like, that's how you're going to make money one day. I was like, huh. Okay. And here we are.
If anything, I should be given credit for keeping this alive, keeping the Alba lore alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lore is important in wrestling.
Yes, exactly.
Lore is very important. That's
exactly. If they go back and they do their research, they will now know that story, or know that story previously if they did the research previously. Like Billy Gunn was the first to bring this up. Billy Gunn's accomplished things in this world.
He has. He is a current AEW Trios champion.
He is. Yes. He's still in great shape.
And I don't know if you've ever heard this, but there's never been a more athletic man in the World Wrestling Federation than Billy Gunn.
Billy Gunn honestly rules. We should all aspire to just have the career.
But that was just the thing. Every Billy Gunn match from 1999 to 2001, Jim Ross would say there's not a single more athletic man than Billy Gunn in the World Wrestling Federation. Every single time.
I saw him live like maybe 6 months or so ago in Atlanta at a CDW show, and he is huge in person.
Was he the most athletic man on that show?
He was also the most athletic person there. I mean, no disrespect to the rest of the roster. It was a great show, but a lot of great independent talent. But like Billy Gunn, dude, I walked. I mean, you don't have to look twice. Like, you can see it like in the corner of your eye. Like, oh, that's Billy Gunn. Like, you know he's around. Yeah, he's just huge. But it's wild because he was like not known as like a big guy back in his era, but in like today's era, he's still humongous amongst like the AEW roster. It's just wild, and longevity. You got to respect the hell out of that. So,
no doubt.
One of my favorite matches is Billy Gunn against Darby Allin. Just the size difference of those two men rules. Billy Gunn should have won that match too. By the way,
didn't he kick out of the coffin drop in that one? Is that the one?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, oh yeah. Everyone was like, "What's going on?"
You know why he kicked out?
Why?
Because he's so damn athletic.
Yeah, the athletic. That's fair. That's fair.
All right, let's get into things here a little bit. Jon Alba, let's start with an easy one. How'd you get into this stupid world of professional wrestling media coverage?
Well, I knew that I wanted to be a sportscaster April 10th, 1998. I was watching the Yankees home opener, that team specifically, the 98 Yankees. That's my why right there. I was watching that home opener against the Oakland Athletics. The final score was 17-13. And I turned to my mom, who I was watching with at the time, and I said, I want to talk about that when I grow up. That's what I want to do. I want to be the guy who's getting all excited over stuff. So I knew I wanted to get into sports journalism from a very, very young age. And it was a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing in the sense I knew what I wanted to do, as a curse because it was all I knew I wanted to do. As when I spent all my time dedicated to doing. I was doing live online sports talk radio when I was in 7th, 8th grade, before podcasts were a thing. I was doing broadcasting camps and courses. It's what I buried myself in with student media in college. And my junior year of high school, I started to combine my interest in sports journalism with pro wrestling, something that was just a hobby of mine, by freelance writing pieces for different websites, WrestleZone being one of them. This was like the time where WrestleZone had Chair Shot Reality with Justin LaBar and Josh Eisenberg. And Josh has become one of my best friends to this day. It's really funny how that stuff works out. And so I started just doing some contributing for different websites until I helped launch a website, which was WrestlingRumors.net. I was there for a couple years, started the Living the Gimmick podcast with my buddy Doug McDonald, held that for 6 years, and then parlayed that into some of the podcasts you know today. But I think the biggest thing that was very transformative was my coverage in Orlando during the pandemic, because I was probably the only sports journalist who had boots on the ground who gave a crap about pro wrestling. And it just happened that pro wrestling was the only thing going on in that area. So it was this weird synergy of all these different elements of my life coming together.
What was that time like during the pandemic, by the way? Like being that guy for the space there, like only guy feet on the ground, like you're saying.
Insane. It was crazy just because there was so much uncertainty over the pandemic at the time, and especially with how the state of Florida was handling it. And I think the big report that kind of got my name out there was when the executive order was signed in the state of Florida that asserted WWE as an essential business. And everyone was like, oh, that's peculiar, right? That seems a bit odd. And myself and one of the other reporters at my station did some tracking, and we found that on the same day that this executive order was issued, Linda McMahon's America First Super PAC donated $18 million to the Republican Party of Florida, the Florida GOP, purely by coincidence, as Ron DeSantis said.
Sure.
So make of that what you will. But I think that was the first report that kind of put some people on, or put me on people's radar. I feel like even though I had been a sports reporter in multiple markets covering the NBA, NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball, college, etc., it was kind of taking that legitimate, I say with quotations, side of sports journalism and applying it to pro wrestling a little more.
And that's certainly when I discovered you as well, because we were covering the news still with professional wrestling. And I think I messaged Sean. I was like, is this person legit? Is his news stories legit? Sean was like, yeah, he knows what he's talking about here. And then we became, I don't know, friends, if you want to call us that, throughout that time. But yeah, covering everything during the pandemic. So you get involved in the world of wrestling. Is this when you started kind of, I don't want to say mingling, but really started to develop just things with wrestling and that side of things?
So it's funny. It's funny. I had been doing indie wrestling stuff for, at that point, 5 years. I had been doing indie wrestling performing and commentary for 5 years. They were more localized things. You know, I started my career in New England, which is how I got so involved with Limitless Wrestling, which I consider to be my home promotion still to this day. I had been doing that, but you know, the way indie wrestling works is unless you're truly out there working the towns every single week, you kind of get attached to your specific region. So that's what I had been doing. Even when I was living in Florida, I was still contributing to Limitless up there. And I loved doing the performance side of things. The performance side of things, because for me, I played in a rock band for so many years, and that performance was my favorite thing that I've ever done in my life, just being able to exert that energy. And there's a lot of parallels in the pro wrestling realm of doing the character stuff. And that's why I've really enjoyed doing what I'm doing now at the Monster Factory, where I'm doing it with students and getting a chance to work with them. I feel like I have a little more street cred now, where there's a lot more collaboration, and they listen to some of the things that I say, and I listen to them, and it's really great. But sorry for bouncing around, but that was definitely a moment for me where I was like, okay, now all these things are starting to come together. I never really intended to be a wrestling reporter per se. Breaking news for wrestling was not something that I had a ton of interest in. Long form interviewing is my passion, and the performance side is my passion. It just so happened that I was a legitimate news reporter who was in this realm where all this stuff was happening. And I felt, well, maybe I can service the industry here and be a voice too for talent, because that was a really uncertain time for a lot of talent. I would have 10, 15 talent a day reaching out to me being like, what's going on with this COVID stuff today? Like, what are the protocols today? And it was really, really an interesting period of time that one day, if there's ever a book, I'm excited to dive into just how crazy it truly was.
Man. So there's a lot I want to ask you about, kind of a lot of what you just said. So when it comes to like Limitless, I know it sounds like you have great experience there. You still consider it your home promotion and everything. Can you elaborate more on like your overall experience there and some of the talent there? Because behind the scenes, you were the one that, I was very aware of Channing Thomas already, but hey, Channing is someone keep a lookout for, and we wound up interviewing him like right after, and he had nothing but great stuff to say about you, and just kind of
I don't know about nothing but great stuff. I listened to the interview.
Well, you know what I mean.
I get what
I
mean.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, Limitless, it's got a very special place in my heart because I think the story of Limitless Wrestling is one of the craziest things that has ever happened in indie wrestling history. You have this promotion that starts in the middle of nowhere, Maine. Like Maine, one of the smallest states in terms of population in the country. And in their third freaking Cassius Ohno, Chris Hero as their main event. It's like, what? You're bringing that to small town Maine? And they slowly developed into this little engine that could promotion, moving to Portland, Maine, more close to Boston, where they became this go-to destination where all these top indie talent really wanted to get their chops in. And I think the thing with Limitless that really, really put it over the top, first MJF being the first champion right around the time that AEW was launching, but it was really the Daniel Garcia run that I think changed the perception, because I think Daniel Garcia in 2021 had one of the greatest indie runs ever in a short period of time, just not just in Limitless, but in general. And he was carrying around that Limitless championship. And Jeremy, I'm sure you've seen this. I joke about this all the time with Sean. I remember in the maybe end of 2019 messaging Sean and being like, you should start paying attention to this Daniel Garcia guy. Like, I think he's going to be a major player. And being able to use my media experience and provide more exposure for some of these talent have been incredibly rewarding. I mean, Daniel Garcia, he posted it on Isaiah Cassidy's blog, or his vlog. I mean, he said that he felt like I was one who helped him get hired in AEW. And like, to hear a talent say that, I mean, that's just so gratifying. So anything that I can do as far as promoting indie wrestling and getting those talent names out there, because there are so many right now that I'm like, they are going to be the stars of tomorrow, that if I can play any part in helping them get that exposure, then I'm thrilled to play that role.
I do love the bit that you do that every time Garcia comes on the screen. Hey, you guys know about Daniel Garcia? You heard about this guy? Like, You don't fully like take credit for, I mean, he's giving you credit. No. You don't like take credit for it at all. But those who know what you're doing. And I find it hilarious.
No. I mean, I would never take credit. I mean, he's the talent, right? And he's amazing. Yeah. But I do think I helped platform him a little bit. And the two of us did this hour-long interview right before he signed that I think
really good too.
Thank you. I think it kind of convinced, I mean, he told me as much. He felt it convinced some of the higher ups to give him a shot. So, and that makes me happy to hear that people are paying attention to that, right? Like, that's awesome. Like, that shows that wrestling media has come a long way, where these companies are starting to pay attention to what people have to say and the content that is being produced. And I think that's great for the industry. I think that's awesome. But I take a lot of pride in trying to help talent in any way that I can in just getting them exposure. I'm grateful you guys have given some of those talent a platform. And like Becca, for example, I think Becca is a WrestleMania main eventer. I think she's going to be that successful. And people like that, they deserve the spotlight. No pun intended. They really do.
Well, Becca was very kind, saying that we were one of her best interviews ever. She great liar.
No, she messaged me right after that. She said that was my favorite interview I've ever done. She really did.
I think it's because we tried to get her into a fight with Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift. Yeah, that was.
You really did. Did.
She was great. Channing Thomas, who you also helped set up, was great. Alec Price, the first time we had him on Spotlight, that was through you as well.
I mean, he's another guy that I think he's a star in the making. And, you know, I think I'm hoping his size doesn't hold him back, because as long as it doesn't, I see Brian Pillman in him. I see this intense babyface or heel that you feel empathy and compassion for the character who's clawing and punching up. He's a special talent too.
Yeah, he's very authentic. Like, even when you interview him, like, he speaks like how he comes across on the show, like calling people bustas and all that kind of stuff. Like, he's like, I like him a lot. And hearing that IWTV championship right now too. I mean, there's a lot of stock in him right now, which is really good to see. Something else I wanted to ask you about just really quick before I forget to ask. I did student media in college as well. What did you do for student media while you were in college?
Yeah. Boy, what didn't I do? I was one of the people that I was like, I'm going to do everything I can to prove that I can make it. And it was not the healthiest mentality to have, I'll be honest. That was like my period of life where from 18 to 22, I was just like, #grind set. I'm just going to grind. And like, that is a really unhealthy mentality. You have to learn how to breathe and give yourself a time to enjoy your life a little bit. But I was writing for the student newspaper. There was a sports network that I was calling play-by-play and color for. And then eventually I ran the student TV station. And it's still to this day, this is probably my proudest accomplishment. When we took over the station my end of my sophomore year, the station had about 25 total people in it. And by the end of my junior year, we had 155. And we then won College Television Station of the Year for the country from the College Media Association. And that was like one of the most gratifying experiences I've ever been a part of, with an amazing group of talent. God, 5 to 7 people I graduated with went on to get really good on-air gigs in TV, and some of them are in the top TV markets in the country right now, and some are network, and it's a really talented group of people, and that was an amazing experience.
I wanted to ask, like, who some of your kind of role models are when it comes to really any aspect of television or media, but specifically interviewing, because I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of your podcast, and one you send them to me. It's like, here, do this. Here's an article for you on my birthday, nonetheless. On my birthday.
I think I sent you something on your birthday. I think I sent you results for an indie show on your birthday too.
Yeah, I ran those.
To be fair, that was a pretty good story I sent you.
It was a good story. It was.
Anyway, finish your question. Sorry.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask about a certain podcast that I got a lot of great stories from, but I would like to see that return at some point.
The Wives?
Yes.
Oh God, I mean, I would love to see the Wives return too, but that is not in my hands.
Yeah. But so just some of your role models when it comes to, and specifically interviewing, but overall, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, I think you are a fantastic interviewer, and it's very engaging to where even if I did not do this for a living and I just would casually enjoy wrestling podcasts, you with Matt Hardy specifically would be one like, I'd probably listen to this just in general.
I appreciate that. And, I know the Hardy podcast is not the most listened to wrestling podcast in the space, but I will put it up there against any in terms of quality. I really do believe that you get an authentic, genuine conversation between Matt and I every single episode. And I don't think you get that with every podcast. So I appreciate the kind words on that. My mentor in the industry is, and a lot of people don't even know this because I don't really talk about it, but my mentor in the industry is Ian Eagle, who's one of the top play-by-play guys in the world for professional sports. And he has this amazing ability to blend straightforward sportscasting with fantastic comedic timing and entertainment value. When Travis Kelce caught that touchdown and he said he caught it in blank space, like that is Bird. And a lot of my broadcasting style has been based off of him. Now, he's not really an interviewer per se, but he taught me something growing up. I've known him since I was 14 or 15 years old. And that was pre-production is production. The amount of work and preparation you put in on a project beforehand will reflect the product that you ultimately put out. And that is how I tackle every single thing that I do. I do all my own notes for all my own podcasts. I don't outsource that to anybody. Everything is done myself. And I think by doing the notes myself, I come up with ideas in my head of what would make for a good conversation talking point, because I've physically done the research. So I'm thinking to myself, what would be good? My mentality with interviewing is that I am inherently curious about people. I'm naturally extremely curious about people from all different walks of life. And I've studied a lot of fantastic storytellers like Boyd Huppert and Steve Hartman, who are these prolific storytellers. And you see the little things they do in their interviewing, where they identify talking points, listen to what someone says, and they find words within that answer that they can then piggyback off of that get you to the next point. And sometimes they'll find something in that answer that they realize will give them an opportunity to delve further into human emotion. And I think the reason we listen to long form interviews or podcasts is because we all like to feel something, whatever that feeling may be. It may be compassion, it may be empathy, it may be sadness, it may be comedy, it may be excitement, whatever it is, or even if it's just curiosity. We all want to feel something. And so I think a great interviewer knows how to listen to things that are said within an answer and piggyback that into asking engaging questions that elicit emotion.
No, I agree with you, and I appreciate your comments. I did not know that Ian Eagle was your mentor like that. I've seen you put him over. And I just thought like you're just a big Ian Eagle fan, and like I don't blame you. Yeah, the Taylor Swift reference. I mean, popped me tremendously.
I'll try to find a picture here for you guys. But yeah, Bird to me is one of the greatest sportscasters ever, and I would have thought that prior to meeting him, and I still think that after. And I've actually gotten to know his son Noah very well, and Noah's becoming a freaking superstar right now in the sportscasting industry. He's the #1 for NBC's coverage of the Big Ten. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there's me and Bird. There's my guy right there.
Very cool.
That's my boy, and he's the best. And I've learned a lot of good qualities from him. And he has taught me, too, that no one is below paying it forward to. And that's why I love mentoring. I love doing stuff like this because, I mean, he's been so gracious with his time for me over the years that, and I see how he is with other people, too. He's one of those people that really wants the broadcasting industry to be a better place. And I kind of wear that with my own approach to sportscasting, but especially wrestling media too, because there's a lot of crap in wrestling media, but there are a lot of really good people too. And yes. I'm always down to try to help mentor anyone that I can if they ever approach me and are interested in that.
Jeremy. I was gonna say, speaking of mentors, I don't know if you catch what I'm doing right now. speaking of mentors and people that mentor in the business, someone you get to work with very closely has mentored many people in wrestling. His name's Eric Bischoff. What's it like being involved with Eric Bischoff at all? Like, I mean, obviously growing up a fan and like being in wrestling, and I mean, I've met him twice. The first time I met him, I was already in my 30s, I think. I was like early 30s, and I did one of these at him. Like, I freaked out because I was like, it's Eric Bischoff. Like,
what a mark!
I marked out big time for Eric Bischoff. This is probably about like 2017 or so, Nashville Fairgrounds. I marked out big. I actually saw him like a couple weekends ago in Atlanta at Deep South, which was cool. But what's it like, Eric Bischoff? That's wild to be doing a show with him.
Eric is the single most challenging person I've ever worked with, and I don't say that in a negative way. He pushes me to be on top of my game. If you were to compare and contrast Strictly Business to the Extreme Life, you'll hear two very different approaches to how I try to facilitate conversation. Because Eric is a smart guy. He's a really smart guy. And there's a 38-year age gap between us. So that is an inherent challenge in and of itself. We come from wildly different backgrounds with wildly different viewpoints on life. And frankly, wildly different viewpoints on the wrestling industry. But I think that makes for a good product. And I'm not sure that Eric necessarily took to me at first, but I think once he saw how much work and care I put into the product, he started to respect the work that I was doing. And from there, we really started to form a really good camaraderie. And our camaraderie is very different than the camaraderie Matt Hardy and I have. It's an extremely different camaraderie. But what really helped was, honestly, Eric and I back in April did a live show in Fresno, California. We flew out to San Francisco together. Oh, we met up in San Francisco, I should say. And then, I don't know if any of you have been out there, but San Francisco to Fresno is a 3-hour drive both ways. So got a rental car and we hit the road on a road trip, Eric and I. And so we spent 6 hours in the car together, plus the entire day together, where he threw out the first pitch. We did a live show. And so altogether, I probably spent 12 hours with Eric Bischoff that day. And I think we really, for the first time, got to bond and truly understand each other. And ever since that, I feel like our relationship has evolved to that next step where it comes across on air that we have a lot more chemistry. I am willing to push back on him more. And it used to be, no, you don't interrupt me. Now I have the ability to interrupt him with something and he'll fire right back. And that's great. We got in a huge fight on air the other day, but it was productive, quality podcast entertainment. So it's true, Stephen. Like, he, for me, probably as a character in wrestling, like my performance, he's probably my biggest influence ever. Right. So the fan in me, it's what a privilege I have. But it has been a challenge, but I am so grateful for Strictly Business. I love the challenge every day to step outside of my comfort zone and cover a different side of the industry that I never really put too much emphasis on. And I learn something from that man every single time we do a broadcast together.
I have one follow-up for that. How
Sure.
How did that actually get started? Because obviously y'all didn't know each other because you're forming the chemistry like as you're
Right.
doing it. So like, how did the podcast really start? And like, how did y'all know?
I had done a few stuff with Eric just on ad-free shows, and they wanted to do a show about the business of the business. I had kind of pitched something similar at one point, and then they took the concept and wanted to really do something with it. And my understanding was Conrad didn't want to really cover the day-to-day stuff of wrestling and the current stuff. So they said, all right, well, let's have John do it. And from there, we were just thrown together. And a lot of people don't realize, because the podcast launched publicly at the beginning of the year, but we had been doing the podcast for 8 months already on the ad-free shows paywall side. So truthfully, we go back to like April 2022 of doing this show together. But yeah, I mean, it has And the difference between then and now, it's wild, because we really have become comfortable together, and the live shows we've done together have been great. He is one of the most personable people that I've ever met in my entire life. His charisma is off the charts, and it does not surprise me that he had as much success as he did and the longevity that he had in the pro wrestling industry, because he knows how to work a room as well as anybody I've ever come across.
From the challenges of Eric Bischoff, and to contrast that with what I feel is a very easy, smooth listen and working with Matt Hardy, to where you guys seem to get along great. There's a good vibe between you guys. I think you steer the conversation very well with Matt. And Matt very much seems like an open book in all of these. Like, you ask him something, willing to answer whatever he needs to answer. What is it like working with Matt, who has decades on top of decades of experience in wrestling, and is still willing to give back?
And I want to just make this clear real quick before I answer that. Like, I am not at all complaining about Eric Bischoff. I love working with Eric. Me saying that he's challenging is not within negative context. It makes me a better broadcaster every single week. So for anyone who makes a headline out of that, I just want to make sure that
no one's making headlines out of this interview unless it's me. And I
say Jeremy's the only one who will. The only person you got to worry about is sitting right here.
I just want to make that very clear, because I love doing Strictly Business. With Matt, man, that podcast is my baby. That was my idea that I've had in my head for 4 or 5 years now, that I always thought Matt would be a great podcast, because I've always found him to be a pretty good storyteller from the interviews that I had heard with him. He was a serial reinventor. He was part of one of the top 3 most famous tag teams of all time. And you always heard from people in the industry that Matt was one of the guys that kind of made things happen, right? Like, Jeff was the sizzle, but Matt was the steak. And I always say that Matt's the secret sauce of the Hardy Boys. And I think you guys might have even asked Channing about working with Matt in your interview with him, if I'm not mistaken, where he said, yeah, Matt's willing to give back because Matt loves pro wrestling so much. And it hurts my heart when I see people online saying the weird shit they say about Matt, because I have found, and this is so genuine, I have found Matt to be one of the best human beings I've ever met in my entire life. I consider him to be a lifelong friend. He's the type of guy that will be in my wedding party when some unfortunate soul decides to marry me, which has not happened yet, or seems like it will be happening anytime soon, aside from Cher Delaware. Aside from Cher Delaware.
Oh, there you go. Shout out Cher right here on the show.
Shout out Cher. But man, Matt Hardy was one of my favorites growing up, and to have an opportunity to say that I get to do a podcast with him, and not even just have a podcast with him, but form the friendship, the genuine friendship that I have with him, where we talk on the phone pretty much every day for an hour plus. My career could end today, and it will be the single most fulfilling thing that I've ever gotten out of it. His kids know me by name. Like, we talk. It's never something I would have ever imagined getting out of doing this work. And I really do appreciate the kind words you said there, Jeremy, because what I love most about that podcast is that Matt is not afraid to talk about pretty much anything. And our conversations about mental health and addiction and these very real things, that's what make it special. And they provide insight as to the type of human being that he is.
I'll say this about Matt Hardy and the podcast. Sometimes I can find the podcast difficult to, as a news person. This is why I say I would listen to the podcast if I wasn't doing news, because news, it's like, what's a good headline? What's a good story that's out there? And Matt is very open and honest about stuff that isn't just wrestling. I think the toughest one I had to kind of do was when everything happened with Jeff, and Matt was talking about that. And I was like, I got to put this into words now. Like, please listen to this podcast. But I tried to be fair to what the actual conversation was, and not just like pull quote. But that happens a lot, even when it's just wrestling related. And so if you're just like looking for a headline of it, it's like, okay, well, let's frame it the right way and make sure what is said is what is said out
and
there.
It's funny, and I appreciate the legwork. I really do, because there are times where it does get frustrating as someone who's pouring his heart and soul into these shows and seeing stuff get taken out of context. Like, no better example than the whole beef that happened with Matt and Jim Cornette, where the Colt Cornette jumped on Matt because in our podcast, he made the comparison of Orange Cassidy to The Undertaker. And he was not saying, if you listen to the episode, he's not saying they're the same type of performer and same caliber performer. He's just saying, as someone who observed how Vince McMahon really relied on The Undertaker when he needed him, Orange Cassidy has kind of become that crutch for Tony Khan, where whenever Tony Khan needs someone in a pinch, he goes to Orange Cassidy. And everyone all of a sudden, I mean, Reddit is the worst of them. Reddit is by far the worst of them. They jump on it. Matt Hardy compares Orange Cassidy to The Undertaker, and like then it just spirals, and then it gets in the hands of Jim Cornette, and it explodes into what it exploded into. And so I appreciate the attention to detail that you put into your coverage, and I really do. And I'm always happy to work with someone if they feel like I'm being unfair to them and calling them out for a bad headline or something. I'll explain why I think it's a bad headline, and they don't have to change it. It's their outlet. They reserve the right to do things how they want to do. But I always just encourage people, just listen.
Message me privately if you have an issue with a headline, Alba. Don't call me out publicly. We're friends. I don't think you have either. I don't
think I've ever called you out.
No, I don't think so. Because I write nothing but banger headlines, Jon Alba. Sure. There's nothing to complain about.
It's true. I called Colin out one time for Fightful stuff.
Dude, what do you do? Don't call my people out.
We had a conversation about it. It was good.
Private.
It was funny. It was funny. It was actually really funny and I think it was about the Orange Cassidy and Undertaker thing.
Oh.
And he put a headline, and I like Colin a lot, for the record. I really do. He's such a nice guy.
He's great.
And he's a workhorse.
Watches the spotlight, by the way. We'll see this.
Colin, shout out to you. But it was funny because he was like, I was like, man, I don't feel like this article is really representative of what Matt said. And he was like, well, I listened to it and like I couldn't really think of any other headline for it. And I was like, what about this? Would this headline make sense? And I suggested one. It's like, oh yeah, that headline would make a lot of sense. I was like, listen, you don't have to change it. This is your outlet. I will never tell someone what to do. But please understand why, as someone who's producing the product and trying to create goodwill with our product, why misrepresentation of headlines can really cause problems. And the Wives podcast is the perfect example of that, where stuff was getting misrepresented all the time, not by you, but like it was getting very much misrepresented because people wouldn't listen. They would aggregate stuff.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you've got these beyond outrageous claims going around, and Randy would be like, what's going on here? You know,
that podcast, as someone who just likes to, I don't want to say shit post headlines, but just, right engaging. It was a gold mine. Yes, it really was. Like
I miss it every day. I really do. I have never had as much fun with a project as I did with the Wives of Wrestling.
I'm going to circle back real quickly to Matt because I wasn't quite done putting him over. Two quick things on him. One, we do interview a lot of independent wrestlers, and Matt works with a lot of independent people. They've been doing shows for a few years. Indie people come to AEW Dark all the time, obviously, and so when we talk to independent wrestlers, a lot of people say like, "Oh, Matt was always very helpful." And I think that's just big because how it is backstage. Everybody's busy. Everybody's doing a million things. And it's like, you don't know who has time for anybody. And they always kind of make it a point and be like, yeah, Matt is always, whether it's in AEW or in an independent show that Matt's working and they're working, they always put over Matt. I've just noticed that trend through when we've talked to a lot of independent people.
Because that's the type of person he is, Jeremy. Like, that's who he is. So when I see these people online who say the stupidest stuff about him or Jeff or whatever, like obviously I'm going to be defensive because this is my vested interest that I have, but I mean it all very genuinely. They are great people, and I think the reason Jeff Hardy has gotten so many chances in wrestling is because other wrestlers know the caliber of person that he is, and they know that he's had these horrible demons that he's dealt with. And Jeff has done some stupid things that could have gotten a lot of people hurt, including himself. But he's been afforded these opportunities because they know in his heart the type of person that he is. And the same goes for Matt.
No. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeremy. I've had a transition in the chamber for like 5 minutes. Go ahead.
I'm sorry that I'm just putting over Matt.
It's about Matt. It's about Matt.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Last one. A personal thing is when Joseph and I were doing the movie reviews, and I would just randomly tag John Cena. We're going to review this movie. Come on our podcast to talk about Batista. Come talk about it. And we did that Wrestlers and Zombies movie.
Yeah.
And I tagged a bunch of people, and Matt was one of them. And he messaged me, and he was just like, "Hey, I appreciate you reaching out, like doing this. Like, didn't have wasn't the best type thing for me. Like, I'd rather not talk about it. But like, hey, thanks for that. Like, he didn't have to do that. He didn't know, especially at that time, he didn't know who the hell we were. Like, he had no idea who we were. But he was just kind enough to reach out and be like, hey, I saw your message. Appreciate you asking. Like, if you need anything, let me know. I just don't really want to.
That's the kind of person he is. That is the kind of, and that's how the show was even pitched to him. He had followed me randomly on Twitter one summer, and I had a cordial message with him, but I was like, I'm going to shoot my shot here. And I shot him a DM, and I was like, Matt, I don't even know if you're going to see this. I have this idea. I need 5 minutes of your time. That's it. I said, call me literally whenever. What happens? 3 weeks later, he calls me at 1 a.m. and he's like got the baby up. He's taking care of the baby, Gothic baby, who's more famous than Matt these days, by the way. And he says to me, I got 5 minutes, man. What's your pitch? And rattled it off. He said, let me think on it. We got lunch at a Chipotle in Orlando before a Dynamite. And we were supposed to meet for like a half hour. We ended up meeting for like an hour and 40 minutes. And we banged out a year's worth of content. And he's like, I'm in. That was it. So
that's awesome.
That's the type of guy he is.
So this is kind of based on the whole headlines and fake news kind of conversation we were just having a little bit there. Something y'all want out there is facts, right? You don't want fake news. You want facts.
Mad facts.
That's my whole thing right here, John. So do you have any favorite Matt facts, or like from the actual show that you can remember, or do you have any Matt facts for Matt that like we might not actually know that you know?
Okay. Okay. I'll give you a Matt fact that I know Matt Hardy pretty damn well now.
Cackle.
Okay. All right. Ready? Okay. Here we go. Matt fact: Matt Hardy runs on Matt Hardy time. Now, what do I mean by that, you might ask? Yeah. Well, I'll be like, hey man, what time you want to record today? They'll be like, let's record at 11 a.m. I know that means we are hitting that record button at 12:30.
Wow.
like
hour and a half.
That far behind.
Today we were supposed that maybe that's a little exaggerated, but I know that it's at least a half hour, a minimum a half hour. Today we were supposed to record at 6, and I knew it wasn't happening. So I just checked with him at like 5:58, and I was like, we good? And he's like, yeah, might need a few more minutes. I was like, don't worry, no sweat. Like, I know, it's fine. We didn't even end up recording tonight. Like, we ended up getting pushed back to, because he has an insanely busy life. But Matt Hardy runs on Matt Hardy time. He very much overestimates how much he can handle at once, because he has a million things that he's responsible for. He's got 4 kids that he's always on the road trying to connect with. He's the best father I've ever seen in my entire life. He does everything for those kids that he possibly can when he's on the road. And I don't know if you've heard, but his wife is an impassioned human being as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot going on there. And I think there are just times where I know we'll set a time and I go, okay, I've got a half hour plus buffer room. So that is my Matt fact for you. That is one that Matt might not even recognize, that I know for sure. My favorite Matt fact from the show is that Hurricane Helms is significantly older than him. which, as we know, Hurricane in actuality is only about 3 months older than him, but he does not let Hurricane Holmes let that down.
That's great.
Have you had run-ins with Rebby?
Rebby and I love each other. Rebby, when
It's kind of condescending just then.
Wait, no.
Oh.
So Rebby, when she first met me, was not a fan because I would be taking time away from Matt to do this project, right? And as an early episode, I want to say it's episode 3 or 4. You can go back and listen. This is when we were recording full time with him at home. She storms in the room after like an hour and 20 minutes. And she just, can I curse here?
Yeah.
She goes, 2 fucking hours? What are we fucking doing here? 2 fucking hours? Get the fuck over this. Well, how interesting is your life that you could talk about yourself for 2 fucking hours? And so I'm like, shit, man. What I did before the podcast even started, because I knew she would be tepid, I bought her a $250 edible arrangement and sent it to them to just try to get on, because women love chocolate, right? They love fruit. Like that's a good thing. So isn't it amazing I'm single? And so I sent that to them. But then as time went on, I think Rebby started to see that I really had her husband's best interest in mind. I was not some money mark who was just trying to make a buck off him. And Rebby and I, truthfully, I know it may not seem like this on the surface, but her and I are cut from the same cloth. Like we grew up in very similar areas and had similar experiences growing up. Her and I are closer in age than her and Matt are. And so I think she started to see that about me. And then the few times that we've actually hung out in person, it's been like this. And we really connect. And her and I text all the time. We just bullshit. Sometimes we shit on Matt. Like it's fun. And Rebby is a really, really wonderful person. She is. And she has her persona that a lot of people know about. But a lot of her fire comes from how much she cares about other people. And she's an incredible mother to those kids and a great wife to Matt. She saved his life. Matt
said that. Yeah.
Matt was using synthetic oxy and she came into his life and whipped him into shape, and she saved him. So I'm a big Rebby Hardy fan, and I always say she's my favorite Hardy. No questions asked. She's my favorite.
I have a story about Rebby that she doesn't know and Matt doesn't know. No one knows. So she's in this mom group, or used to be. And my wife was in the same group. And she's like, yeah, I'm in this mom group. And this was years ago.
Is this like on Facebook? Like, what do you mean mom group?
Just mom group, Jensen. If you're not in the mom group, you're not in the mom group.
But what do you,
mom group online.
Oh,
online.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay, thank you. I'm single also, John.
If you gotta ask questions, you're probably not part of the group.
I'm not.
Exactly.
I didn't get the invite. Okay, sorry, Jeremy. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to understand what the small group was. Okay, gotcha.
But when my wife and I met and we were wrestling fans and everything, she's like, I used to be in this mom group with Rebby Hardy. I was like, yeah? What was that like? She's like, it's exactly what you would think Rebby Hardy would be in a mom group. But I was like, I bet that is tremendous.
Like, if you're wife, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was like, my wife loves chaos from afar. Doesn't want to be part of any of it, but loves if she's not part of the drama, she will watch the drama.
House Hardy.
So she's like, this is amazing.
House Hardy is chaos. There's no doubt about it. You're on the phone with Matt and you just hear children screaming, just running around. I mean, it is chaos. If you listen to the podcast that we tape when we're at home, when he's at home, there's a run-in from every single kid, every single episode. That's just how it is there. And I love those kids. They're so smart and they're so personal. But as far as Rebby's concerned, like, you look at her social media, man, her Instagram or TikTok, she is one of the most creative people I've ever seen in my entire life. And what she has manifested with this gothic baby shit, it's incredible. It's truly incredible. And she was pissed at me recently. This is a good story. So I might have the video of it. I'll see if I can find the video. I'll send you the video because this was not public. I went to American Dream, the mall in Jersey in the Meadowlands right before I went to Springsteen a few weeks ago. and they have the Nickelodeon Universe theme park there. Rebby is a huge Blues Clues fan. She like wanted to get down and dirty with Steve back in the 90s. Like that was her jam. She like dressed as Steve for Halloween one year, all this stuff. And Matt recently met Steve at a Comic-Con because apparently Steve from Blues Clues is a huge Hardy Boy fan.
Really?
So he went up to him, threw up the V1 with Matt and all that stuff. And Matt was like, hey, look at this. And Rebby cursed him out. It was like, screw you, blah, blah, blah. So at this theme park, they have a Blues Clues section and they have the chair that Steve would sit in and read the mail and all that stuff. So I had my friend take a video of me and I was like, Rebecca Hardy, my favorite Hardy, I love you dearly, but I'm going to brag a bit because you know where I am right now? I'm about to go sit and the camera pans over and I'm just there in Steve's chair. And excuse the vulgarity. She goes, what in the goddamn fuck is this shit? And she's like, fuck you, bro. Fuck you, bro. And she went off. She cut a promo on me, but she was laughing. And they had a Legends of the Hidden Temple thing. They had Olmec there in person, and I took a picture of him. She's like, Legends of the Hidden Temple, fuck you, man. It was great. But that's the beautiful dynamic that this podcast has allowed me to build with their family, and I'm very grateful for it.
That sounds awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm a big 90s like Nickelodeon.
Oh.
I was born in 88, so like 90s Nickelodeon was my life.
Dude.
I still have a Nickelodeon like shelf, and I'm surrounded by memorabilia and stuff, and I have like a Nickelodeon shelf over here off camera that just 90s Nickelodeon stuff, man. That's awesome.
I mean, look at this. Come on now.
You and Olmec.
Oh,
Let's rock. Yeah.
Come on now. Come on.
That's so dope.
Sorry for all the cursing, guys. This is strictly reenacting the events that occurred.
No, I don't care. I don't care at all. I don't think Jeremy. I mean, we've been cussing. We've been doing the show for a while and it hasn't changed. So
I like to try to keep things clean.
Yeah,
I was simply reenacting real life events.
John, I did have a question for you about the whole Emmy award winning thing, because that's pretty incredible.
Where is Erica?
Right there, pal.
Okay, I couldn't tell. Not
Not
camera.
framed up. Here,
Yeah, camera front and center like usual.
No.
There we go. Okay.
This was due to work with the MLB Network. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, I've been nominated for several others for other things that I've done, but the National Emmy was for producing a segment with MLB Network for MLB Tonight.
So can you elaborate a little more on just kind of like that overall experience? That's obviously not many people. It's a huge accomplishment. And especially to be someone who wanted to get into sports broadcasting, saying at a young age, you want to call Yankees games, and then you get an Emmy for a sports show for the MLB Network. That's wild.
Dude, MLB Network was the coolest job I've ever had. Like hands down. I got to be in production meetings with my sports heroes. I hated Pedro Martinez with every fiber of my body as a kid. Sure. But I was one of his producers at MLB Network, and I loved working with Pedro, hearing the difference. It was like going to class every day. He'd hold a baseball and he'd be like, here's the difference between releasing a fastball here versus here. And you're like, it's blowing your mind. So I loved working at MLB Network. The reason I left was because I wanted to do the on-air path, and it was my first gig in the back end of college, and then eventually out of college for a few months. But my dream would always be to go back there in an on-camera role, and I can't really go into specifics at this moment in time, but I'll give the spotlight a little bit of a exclusive. Very, very soon. Very soon. Imminently, one may even say.
Okay. I was going to ask about this soon tweet. So now we're getting very soon.
Very soon. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I want to make that clear, by the way. That's me having fun with people on social media. I would never cryptic tweet about news that I cover. I know there are journalists that do that, or people who cover stuff. I would never do that. That's not the right thing to do.
Sure.
I
But-
just assume like it's personal news if it's coming from
Yeah.
someone like you. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you got something personal. to
Yeah,
about at some
so
point.
I very imminently I'm going to be returning to the TV realm in a very, very cool thing that I'm so excited about, that will make that 5-year-old sportscaster who loves New York sports be very proud of himself. And I struggle greatly with imposter syndrome. I've been writing a lot about that on my Substack, and I do think it's very important in life when you accomplish something that you never thought you would do, to remind yourself, hey, how cool would young me have thought that this is? You know, I mean, Jeremy and Steven, like, even for you guys, if you've been on a media call with a major organization, or if you've interviewed a wrestler that you always wanted to interview, that you loved growing up, like, what would you say to your younger self who just thought this stuff was so cool, right? That you got these opportunities to do stuff like that. So I'm big on that.
Again, I think that's I actually tell myself that all the time, to be
Mhm.
honest. Like, it's something that, like, because wrestling is such a niche thing. It was something that was like so hard to be a fan of as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, outside of the big boom and the Attitude Era, like, you know, it wasn't cool to be a wrestling fan.
No, not
growing
at
up.
all.
So,
Not at
like,
all.
you know, you were always told it was stupid and fake and this and that. And like, I feel like a lot of us just kind of like pushed through those years. And then like we all kind of wound up in this space together. Like, we went through it, and now like it isn't like even that, because it also goes along with like Marvel movies becoming so popular, and like kind of nerd culture, I think, all kind
Sure.
of becoming like accepted nowadays. Because now wrestling, you don't. It's been a long time since I told someone I like pro wrestling, and they're like, you know, it's fake, right? But that used to be all I heard, you know? So like, I think it's really cool that you do that too, because I do it myself all the time. Like, especially when I get to interview a wrestler, or I get invited to like an indie show to like interview talent or whatever. And I'm like, they actually wanted me to come to this thing. Like I used to pay whatever money I could scrape together to go to a show and just be in the building and just see a wrestler.
Right.
And now I get to talk. They want me there talking to them. Like, and it's so I think that's a really good message for anybody at any level and any kind of profession. Like, look back and be like, man, when you were 10 years old, 15 years old, 8 years old, or whatever, looking at yourself in the mirror or watching YouTube videos and being like, wow, it's cool when you, like you said, it's cool when you can start like podcasting and talking to people you were a fan of, and now like you're kind of peers. Like, it's really cool to, and I think you should remind yourself that.
The first time that I ever did that was maybe 2019. My first ever pro athlete that I interviewed was Jeff Bennett, who was a middle reliever for the Atlanta Braves. I went down to Braves spring training in like 2007, 2008. I had back when people used to use those handheld recorders rather than their phones. I just went down there. I wasn't credentialed or anything, but he was signing autographs for fans on the spring training sideline at Disney. And I went and I just said, hey, can I ask you a few questions? And like, that was my first pro sport athlete interview. And in 2019, the Braves were playing their last spring training game at that venue, the Disney venue, because they were building their own stadium. And I was put on coverage for that game. And I was like, oh my God, like, this was where I did my first ever athlete interview. And now I get to be here for the last event that they have here. And I did a stand-up, which in TV terms, that's when you're on camera. I did a stand-up in the exact spot that I stood in when I interviewed Jeff Bennett. And so for me, I was like, man, 7th, 8th grade John would have thought this is the coolest freaking thing ever. And that's what I try to remind myself. And getting to work with Hardy and Kurt Angle, two of my all-time favorites, and Eric Bischoff. That's how you keep things in context, even when life gets rough, because it does get rough. And Jeremy, that's why I'm so appreciative of you and you too, Steve. But Jeremy, I know how open you are about talking about mental health and all that stuff, and I'm so appreciative of that, because that's something I put a ton of emphasis on, and I don't hold back. This has been a really difficult year for me, and I know it has for you as well. And you just got to find those little things that motivate you to keep getting up every day and doing your thing. That's really what it boils down to.
Well, that is my wife and kids.
Absolutely.
Now.
Whatever your why is,
Yes.
whatever your why is, you
Yes.
got to figure out what it is, and that's your motivation.
I gotta get up, and someone's gotta, and she does all the hard work, but someone's got to also write these headlines and help support them. Alba, John, I apologize. I got to wrap here quickly. But we have to ask the question that we ask everybody. You can't say Erica, but the coolest thing in your room.
People probably lack complete context as to why you're referring to my trophy as Erica, but that's a whole nother story.
Her name.
That's her name. I don't make the rules here. That's right. Just how it is. Coolest thing in my room. A lot of cool things in my room, honestly. I do love that sign there that a fan brought. If Alba shows up, we riot. That was a fun one.
Cool.
I think the coolest thing that I have here, I have a custom Muppet that is currently over there in the corner that someone made for me and became my friend. That's pretty cool.
Can you show it to us?
What's that?
Can you show it to us?
I can get it if you truly would like me to.
Yeah, we want to see it.
I mean, we
you can go off camera. You're good. You're good.
We'll
hold it down.
You don't have like pants on or something.
I have pants on. I have pants on here.
All right.
This is my Muppet Malcolm. This is him.
That's awesome.
I'm a big Muppet Mark, huge Muppet Mark.
Really?
Kermit the Frog is kind of my inner being. And so Malcolm is definitely one of them. But also, I have cufflinks made out of seats from the original Yankee Stadium.
Oh.
And I would say that is probably the coolest piece of anything I have in my room, for sure.
Nice. Is the poster that's awesome. Is the poster behind you of the Yankees players? That's something you made like as a kid? It's like all the players like put together on the.
I didn't make that poster. That was a poster that was purchased for me in 1998.
I can just tell it's been like it looks like one of the old like 90s posters. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if that was like a almost like a
I've held on to that poster throughout the years. That's the 98. That's the 98 Yankees right there, and above them it's the 99 Yankees. Those teams were literally the reason why I'm sitting with you guys today. And I know that might sound weird, but like without that, I would have never gotten into broadcasting. That was just the most transformative period of time in my life. So I hold that pretty near and dear to me.
It looked like one of those old school. I recognize. I used to get like the book fair posters and all that stuff. Ken Griffey Jr. back in the day.
Yeah.
I still got some of those around here too. I got one of him and his dad back in the day. So anyway, very very cool. That Muppet is throwing me off, but it's very cool that you have it.
I mean,
I know that's what's throwing me off. Feels like there's two of y'all there.
We can't say those things on air. That's like illegal in 5 countries, bro.
Oh no.
John, I'm gonna let you plug everything,
Yes.
But real quickly, I'm gonna put you over after burying you for your punchable face to start. I'm gonna put you over because this story truly means a lot to me, and I still have this memory from the first time we actually met in person. I was having a very hard weekend, a couple of days. No one needs to know what was going on, but it was a very rough couple of days. And I did not think I was going to make it to Chicago for All Out 2021. I didn't think I was going to make it. It was a rough couple of days. We got there. My now wife and I got there, and we all met up at a karaoke bar. And you were the first person I saw. I think I V-triggered Connor Casey first. But then I saw you. You just gave me a big hug, and you were just like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, yes, I'm good. And that just meant so much to me. It'll always stick with me because it was a rough couple of days.
Yeah.
But you just like giving me a hug and asking, are you okay? Like it meant a lot to me, and it'll always stick with me. So I really appreciate that. And I think I told you that before. If not, I'm telling you now, but
thank you.
Again, it's something that will always stick with me.
You got to look out for other people. And it's the reason I love Bruce Springsteen so much is that last line of Born to Run. It says, someday, girl, I don't know when we're going to get to that place we really want to go. And I stand by that. Someday, I don't know when we're going to get to that place. You're going to get through whatever is damaging you or holding you back. And sometimes you just need people to encourage you along the way. And, I love your work. I love you. I love your family. And I'm so grateful for your friendship and appreciative of you, even for all the grief you've given me for my hair and face and everything.
I love your hair.
I know
your
you
face
do.
is
That's true.
punchable. Jon Alba, let everybody know where they can find you at.
The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy drops every single Friday wherever you get your podcasts, and extremehardy.com. Strictly Business drops every single Thursday, or based on whenever Eric Bischoff's taping schedule is, wherever you get your podcasts, and 83weeks.com. Out of Bounds every Monday night on the Know Your News network. And the one thing that I think, and I just want to put this over real quick, I know you got to go, wrestlingaccordingtoalba.com. It is my Patreon, but I stand by it. This is the smartest group of wrestling fans I have ever met in my entire life. It is an inclusive space that if you're looking for a safe space to talk about pro wrestling without judgment, it's an amazing community. And I do tape studies every single week there, in addition to Ask Albas. But with these tape studies, they are match breakdowns where I really try to give you some of the ins and outs of why something happens in a wrestling match. And I do it live in person with my subscribers. So it's an amazing, amazing platform that we have, wrestlingaccordingtoalba.com. Go check that out. Thank you guys for having me. I love you guys and I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jon. All the links are below. Everyone check out, support Jon. Yeah, go over to the Patreon, Wrestling According to Alba. I've seen the match studies, and I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. I don't think there's like enough of that in wrestling. I know it's a kind of a niche thing, but it's very cool when people do that. So go check it out. Wrestling According to Alba, and all the podcasts that Jon hosts. All the links are below. The Twitter is below. All that fun stuff. Jon Alba, love you, buddy. Appreciate you, guys. We'll be right back here on the Spotlight. We are back. Big thank you to the great Jon Alba for joining us in the Creator Spotlight. We are scheduled to have Jon Alba's doppelganger on next week. So it's basically like back-to-back weeks of Jon Alba on the show, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Back-to-back weeks of punchable faces on this show. That's what we're doing. Again, thank you to Jon Alba. Everyone can check out the links below. Support him. Go check out Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. Check out Strictly Business with Eric Bischoff. Check out wrestlingaccordingtoalba.com and follow him on Twitter if you want him to be mad about like the Yankees or the Giants, because both of them, Giants aren't that great this season. They're struggling a little bit. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Appreciate all the chat support. I've seen some very nice things about how we've helped you get through the day. Thanks, Jeff Fellow Driver. You're always here in the chat. We appreciate you, man. And hopefully make the days a little bit easier, and hopefully your days are good after this as well. But we strive to, I don't know, be background noise, if nothing else. Thank you guys again for joining us. Big weekend in wrestling coming up. We got NXT, we got WrestleDream. Hope everyone enjoys all of the wrestling this weekend. Next week, I am off. I will be part of the interview. I will not be doing the main show. I have personal stuff to take care of. SB3 will be filling in for me next week, but there will still be a new episode of The Spotlight next week. Same time, still 9:30 a.m. Eastern on Thursdays. I'll be there for every In the Weeds episode. In the Weeds is live tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern on Fightful Overbooked. Everyone go to Fightful Overbooked. Check out all the shows we got going on over there. New Japan Bread Club, new episode of that just dropped. We have Tag Talk was on Monday. Haley and Kylie stole our background. Thieves. Tag Talk was on Monday. We have Coexisting on Friday with Rob and Maggie. And yes, all the great shows we have going on Fightful Overbooked. And check out, if you miss any of the interviews, all the interviews get clipped and are posted up there. So everyone go check out the interviews as well. Guys, we'll be back next week. Jensen will be back with SP3. I'll be back on Fightful Overbooked. Oh, I should probably plug this, right? I should probably plug an interview I did with Ilya Dragunov. That seems kind of important to talk about. That'll be dropping tomorrow at noon on this channel. YouTube.com/Fightful. I spoke with Ilya Dragunov. He's challenging Carmelo Hayes for the NXT Championship this weekend at NXT No Mercy. So for some reason, I got trusted to do that. I don't know why, but I did. So that drops tomorrow. Everyone can check it out. I think the notes just got posted on Fightful Select. So if you're a subscriber to Fightful Select, you can go check out the notes right now from that interview, and you can watch the interview tomorrow on this channel, and you can read a lot of the transcriptions from the interview beginning tomorrow and then in the next coming days and stuff. So that's tomorrow, myself with Ilya Dragunov. So check that out. All right, everybody. We'll be back next week. Jensen will be back next week. I'll be on Fightful Overbooked tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern with In the Weeds. Y'all have a good weekend.